Moving on, we have calendar and communications. Counselor Merritt, do you have anything you would like to share?
Not this evening.
Okay, Counselor Pacino.
I do not have anything to share this evening. Thank you.
All right, Counselor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When someone makes an allegation against you as an elected official, and it's not immediately addressed, it doesn't mean that it is true. So typically, I would not speak about a resident. However, I believe it's really important to address the multiple allegations made against elected officials, as well as the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunity complaint that John Goodrich filed against the town of Groton and elected officials. A draft finding of the CHRO complaint was released on May 8th, 2025, and is now subject to FOIA here in the town. I'm going to read sections of this, of what was found. A complaint was filed by John Goodrich on 4/16/2024, alleging that he was not promoted and retaliated against based on his erased criminal history record, information, and previous opposition to discriminatory conduct. Mr. Goodrich alleged in his complaint that he was denied the HDC commissioner appointment due to his erased criminal history record. This investigator does not find that to be credible. The complainant, Mr. Goodrich, was not approved for recommendation to be appointed as a full seat member of the HDC Historic District Commission because he harassed elected and appointed officials of the town via incessant, pointed, and demanding emails. The final paragraph reads, based on the totality of evidence and testimony provided, this investigator, meaning the CHRO investigator, fails to find that Mr. Goodrich's protected class played any role in his denial of appointment as a full-time HDC member. Rather, Mr. Goodrich was not selected based on his harassing behavior towards the town's mayor, manager, police chief, other elected officials, and employees. The town had legitimate, non-discriminatory reasons for not appointing him as a full-time member of the HDC. The town's witnesses were found to be credible. Mr. Goodrich's witnesses did not substantiate that the town was not, or that he was not appointed for the basis, I'm sorry, let me read that again. Mr. Goodrich's witnesses did not substantiate that Mr. Goodrich was not appointed for the position based on his protected class. Mr. Goodrich has subsequently filed a release of jurisdiction to the CHRO, stopping the investigation and its final report. Mr. Goodrich has since filed another CHRO complaint, and for record, the original complaint has cost the town $21,000 in legal fees associated to Mr. Goodrich since May of 2024. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Counselor Bordelon, do you have anything to share during counselor comments?
My first thing was I reached out to the town manager asking about an agenda packet that I never received.
I never heard from you.
Oh, I sent it via text. I didn't have, is there any extra ones? I can use these.
Yeah, I've got an extra one.
All right, that was it. Other than that, just a few concerns about some of the things that we're talking about tonight, like the, thank you. I'll hold comment for that, but that's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the Recovery Fest on Friday, hosted by the Grasso Tech students. This has been a great event that has highlighted different recovery, addiction services, outside services that the town doesn't offer, but are supplied by outside organizations. So just congratulations on their effort of the high school students at Grasso Tech to pull together their annual Recovery Fest, and it was another success. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor McBride.
Thank you. The only notable item I have is that today I attended the CCM Legislative Business and Legislation Committee. Meeting was featured discussions on the newly enacted legislative issues regarding appropriations, finance, revenue bonding, education, public safety, and energy. I received a summary of all the important bills which have been updated, and I'll forward all these to the councilors for their review if they desire. The event also had an excellent presentation from Keith Frenoff from the Connecticut Mirror on the Connecticut state budget negotiations and the overall fiscal affairs of the state. I'll be looking to get a copy of that, and I'll forward that to the council as well, because it really portrayed an excellent recent fiscal situation of the state, but also provided some historical context on the state fiscal affairs and where we're at. So I found it beneficial, so I'll be forwarding that to the council for their review as well. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Parker?
Fix it.
And thank you for doing the clock.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of communications, talking to residents about things they've watched our meetings and find it interesting. I've attended 2 events, the community workshop on opportunities and challenges in the offshore wind development, that was last week, and the United Way Richard Harwood from the Harwood Institute of Public Innovation. He was conducting a book tour and has a new book called The New Civic Path, Restoring Our Belief in One Another and Our Nation. I attended this event with Councilor Rusk, so it was a very interesting event. It'd be a good book to read for everyone in the room. And that's all.
Thank you. Well, I want to start off by saying thank you to the many residents who have offered support for me regarding the issues swirling around the council. Both my husband and I have received messages, have been stopped in public and in social settings by so many people offering support to me, as well as some of the members of this council. I thank you all, and please know that your support is deeply appreciated and is very heartwarming. I'd like to thank you, Councilor Rusk, for sharing the facts from the CHRO draft findings. Thank you. On another note, I want the community to know that I typically do not come to meetings with the goal of attacking my fellow colleagues or town staff. I also keep politics away from our meetings. I simply come prepared to do my work and what is best for Groton. Topics that come before us, I do not try to make the topics about me or my family, but rather what is best for our residents. I believe political rhetoric and non-council business is better served by sounding off on social media rather than these meetings. Though I have so much information about the workings of this council, issues which have arisen recently, and I've heard members of our community question if this council should conduct investigations. If an investigation is to be had, I would welcome one. The town council has subpoena powers, and I, for one, would welcome seeing some very specific information which could be obtained by a subpoena. I would say to my fellow councilors, if you want to conduct an investigation or investigations, I would support the effort, because I, for one, have done nothing inappropriate. All right, up next is approval of minutes. Councilor Parker, would you like to take that one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I make a motion to approve the Committee of the Whole meeting minutes of May 27, 2025, and the Committee of the Whole special meeting minutes of June 3rd, 2025. I so move.
Second, Jones?
Moved by Parker, seconded by Jones. I have an amendment I would like made. It is on our packet, page 4. At the bottom, it said Mayor Franco called for a recess at 6:44, and I would like it to be added that this is due to Council Bordelon's third out of order per the town council rules. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Councilor Bordelon.
On page 5, where it states, Council Bordelon requested report information to ask when council will have opportunity to ask the developer questions. Mayor Franco stated that the executive sessions have been held with opportunities for questions, and at this time, questions can be directed through the mayor. That wasn't, maybe the first part was said, but weren't able to ask any questions through the mayor that night.
The questions for the mayor should be stricken then, is what your request is?
Yeah, because we
I
were
agree.
said no,
Thank-
it's
I will
just the
second that.
presentation.
Point of information, repeat. Could you repeat that, please?
On page 5, the 6th paragraph down, at the very end of the paragraph says, questions can be directed through the mayor, and questions, that was, I don't recall that even being said, so I would second that being removed.
Just to, can I have a comment?
Your comments.
I would appreciate it if we have changes to the minutes, if they could be emailed prior to the meeting. So if there's a change to the minutes that's substantive, I can review the video to see what information, because it's hard for me to recollect these situations. So if I would just encourage everyone, if they could, to email Town Manager Burt so we can make changes and review that if needed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, so we're going to vote on the first, well, the second, I guess, this second amendment, which is strike and questions can be directed through the mayor. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 8-0. And then the section about Mayor Franco call for recess due to the Council of Berlin's third out of order per the Town Council rules. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? All right, that passes 7-1 with Bordelon opposed. And then we will vote on the minutes as, with amendments. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Passes 7-1 with Bordelon opposed. All right, moving on to new business. First up is 2025-551, Board of Education STEM Camp Donations Acceptance. This is on, let me find it very quickly. It's on page 14 of our packet. Counselor McBride, would you like to take that one?
Sure. 2025-551, Board of Education STEM Camp Donation Acceptance. I'd like to make a motion to recommend a resolution authorizing the Groton Public Schools Board of Education to accept a grant in the amount of $17,000 from Electric Boat to fund an elementary summer STEM camp and to refer the item to the RTM per Rule 6.5.3.
Second, Parker?
Moved by McBride, seconded by Parker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board of Ed Chairperson Washington, good evening.
Good evening.
Would you like to give us a quick synopsis on the grant?
Thank you very much. So on May 27th, at the regular Board of Ed meeting, the board approved a donation from Electric Boat for $17,000 for the STEM camp. As the procedure goes, we come to the town council, get approval at anything over $10,000, and then it goes to the RTM. The donation, EB's donation of $17,000 was to support expenses related to elementary summer STEM camp, including teachers, paraprofessionals, a secretary, a nurse, transportation, and supplies. The camp typically serves approximately 180 students in grades K through 5. Families pay $25 registration fee. The camp will run half days from July 7th through July 10th. And camp communication, signage, and items like stickers and water bottles will show elementary STEM camp, sponsored by Electric Boat, and will include EB's logos. There's no obligation for future funding. The camp will provide hands-on experiences in engineering, computer science, and team building.
Okay.
It's open to all families in Groton, and it's a very successful program. I think we had it for the last 5 years, and we typically have between 180 to 240 students.
It's wonderful. Okay. Do you have any comments? Counselor Berlin?
Thank you. For me, it's a great opportunity, so it's pretty much a no-brainer that this is great for our community, great for our kids. Unfortunately, there are people that may have trouble affording the $25. Are there ways in which people can apply for a waiver for the application fee?
Yes.
Is that also on the flyer anywhere?
No, it's not.
Is there any way that that can be added and put up on the website? I just don't want there to be a barrier for someone who maybe can't afford to attend and thinks, you know,
I'm
maybe
sure
they
we
have
can do it.
three kids and, you know, they don't want one to go and they want all three to go, but $75 might be a lot for somebody. And just, maybe there's a way that we can add that.
I'm sure we can do it.
Thank you.
Counselor Rusk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also 100% support this. Obviously, it's a great program. Thank you so much for running it. And I just want to say thank you to Electric Boat. Thank you to the Board of Ed for reaching out and having this connection. And I'm excited to see that Electric Boat has been donating so much to our community. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chairman. Question is there any requirements for the students that come to the camp? Is it, they just
Nope.
sign up and show up?
Sign up and show up.
Okay. And so there's no requirements, and it covers ages, first through,
Well, K through 5.
K through 5. Okay. And is there any follow-up afterwards when the kids get
I
into
don't think
schools
so.
or into classes later on?
I don't think so. But I'll check that out and get back
Yeah,
to you.
I'm
on
just
that.
wondering if it, to help keep the, the learning going, is there any way that they kind of get incorporated into the curriculum or something?
I'll check that out, and I'll get back to you on that.
All right, congratulations and thank you, and thank Electric Boat for all their
They've been
support.
good community partners lately,
Yep.
so.
Counselor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Washington. And thank Mr. Ben Moon, because he's really good at looking at these
Yeah.
grants and making sure the kids have a lot of knowledge in science-based. The last event I was at, he did something with bananas, so I think the kids will enjoy this type of interaction. So, again, can you thank Mr. Moon for me? So,
Okay, I will.
thank you.
And this would be a great camp for students because it's hands-on, and anything hands-on for young kids, K through 5 is great, keeps their attention.
And he's really, really good at grabbing the kids' attention, so.
In fact, I was at, real quick, I was at a graduation ceremony for transition kindergarten, and those little kids in transition K, they were saying how much they like science, and this was at Captain Kanaski School. So, if we can keep building on that science road, that's good.
Counselor Merritt.
I believe the information that was requested of you is in our packet.
That's another sheet.
That's correct. Do you have anything further? You should put your microphone down. Bring your microphone down.
The information that was requested about cost is in our packet.
No, I think Councilor Borderline was asking if they cannot afford to pay, is there a way that they can go for free?
That would be up to the summer camp people that are running it.
But I'm sure we'll have a way to pay for those students.
I think they could come up with a solution.
Right.
Counselor Pacino.
This is a really cool thing Electric Boat's doing for the school system. Do we have any children attending Groton schools who don't live in Groton?
Yes, we do. Not many, like we have somebody at the high school that's enrolled in the IB program that doesn't live in Groton, they pay tuition.
Are they eligible for this?
But this is K through 5.
So we don't have any kids of that age?
I don't know if we have any elementary school kids that don't live in Groton,
Okay.
so. But I'm thinking that they have to, it says all parents and families of Groton's elementary students. So if they go to our schools, then they can go to the camp.
Perfect.
All right, seeing no other hands, we're going to take a vote on 2025-551, the Board of Education STEM Camp donation acceptance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is 2025-552, I-95 Allen Street ramp. There's no motion for this one. This is on page 17 of our packet. And we have some visitors. Come on up. Right here up at the table. Have a seat. You can share microphones.
Okay, I'll probably sit right here.
And
Can I stand or no?
You can do whatever you'd like over there.
But you will need the microphone.
Yeah, just make sure you have the microphone when you speak.
Okay.
You can come up and have seats as well. You can join this table as well. Do you have associates behind you that would like to come up?
Presenting as well.
You are welcome to come up to the table.
If you do a little dance, it'll help the presentation.
So, Madam Mayor, General Counsel.
Would you like to introduce yourselves all first before we get going in the,
Okay.
before we dive right in,
So,
please?
my name is
Everybody-
Joe Jasowitz. I'm a project engineer at the Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Scott Bushy, I'm a principal engineer of the State Highway Design Unit and also chairman of Roundabout Committee for DOT.
I'm Nick Sicoli. I'm a project designer under Joe at Connecticut Department of Transportation.
Greg Hanover, Director of Public Works for the town.
LJ Fazaro, Police Chief. Ken Richards, Fire Chief, Olmsted Fire District.
All right, welcome. All right.
So I'd also like to note, I also sit on the Roundabout Committee as a member. So we're here today to discuss Project 58341. It's intersections improvements at Route 614 at the I-95 northbound, southbound, on and off ramps. So here's our brief agenda of the items that we'll be discussing today. I'll be turning over the presentation briefly. I would like to note that the packet that is handed out in front of you, there's some outdated slides. Those were since updated. The new ones were shared this morning, but they've been handed a copy. Okay, so, all right, that's good. So we'll be going briefly over the project location, the need for the project, the existing conditions, our purpose. We'll be talking about our intersection control evaluation process. And Scott will be talking about our roundabout program as a whole. And then I'll be going into our alternative analysis, which also includes our traffic analysis. And we'll be talking about maintenance considerations, cost, and a brief summary comparison of those two alternatives that we were presenting, and then we'll be opening it up for general discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
All right, so the project we're talking about today is in Groton, of course, and you can see it's on the eastern side of Groton there, and the project number is 58341. So in Groton, you can see we're close on the border of Ledyard and Stonington, and the Mystic is down there. So we're going to be on State Route 614 right here, and the project location is where it intersects with I-95. So in that circle there, there's 3 intersections that are part of our project. And just some nearby features, there's Tree Trails Adventures, so we're at exit 89 on I-95, so some people might use that, and a lot of people might go to the Mystic areas. Zooming in a little bit closer to the project location, there's the 3 intersections, as I mentioned. So this first one, we're calling it the northern intersection, and it's the I-95 southbound off-ramp and I-95 southbound on-ramp, intersects with Route 614. And then these 2 intersections, which are really close to each other, we're calling them the central intersection and the southern intersection. So it's the intersection with the I-95 northbound off-ramp, and then northbound on-ramp, and then one intersection with the local Sandy Hollow Road. And you can see to the north, it's just worth noting that it's an existing signalized intersection, so it's nearby our project. And then to the south, there's not another intersection, it's just the road continues for a while. So some background on the project. In December of 2004, there was a I-95 corridor study from Brantford to Rhode Island, and that study recommended signalization and geometric revision work at both of these intersections with I-95 here, and of course recommended many other things along I-95. And that study was actually updated in May of 2018, and it highlighted the current state project 58307, which included some work along I-95, including these intersections here. So then in August of 2020, the scope of that project was updated and determined that the exit 89 improvements should be a standalone project and break out from that 58307, which is our project now, 58341. So this project was initiated by PDU, which is our project development unit at the CTDOT, and they recommended the signalization of all 3 intersections. So 2023 to 2025, we began looking at it, and we decided to also explore a roundabout alternative. And this was due to public comment from a vocal resident. There were some emails with the resident as well as town officials, and bounced a lot of ideas off and realized that, yes, we should look into the roundabout and give it thorough consideration for the intersections. And these emails also went to the State Representative Baumgardner, and some of the ideas were just from the safety benefit of roundabouts with high-speed approaches of the main road, where the roundabout would have low-speed approaches, and also operational benefit, such as vehicle queuing, where the roundabout helps move the vehicles through better, and improve geometrics at the interchange. And that's really about, in Connecticut, we've been having the wrong way problems with the interstates, so the roundabout kind of helps prevent that compared to the regular intersection. And we just discussed other benefits as well, such as aesthetics and different things like that. So that was part of the 2023 to 2025, and then we also, part of that was also, we actually looked and saw, does the roundabout actually fit here at these intersections? And we looked at some of the things like, will the trucks be able to turn, or what would the speeds be before advancing further? And then, based on that, we decided a couple months ago, April 2025, we met with the town manager, fire, EMS, police, and planning and engineering, just to get some feedback, and we got a lot of positive feedback, which was good, especially with some concerns from maybe fire trucks or emergency vehicles. We were able to address those. And the main suggestion from that was that we have this presentation here today with the town council and gather your feedback. So looking a little bit more at the existing conditions at the site, this is the northern intersection here with the southbound on and off ramp. So the off ramp has a stop sign, and then the on ramp has a yield sign for this slip lane and no prevention sign for the main lane there. So here's a picture looking left from the stop sign from the off ramp. So you can kind of see that the sight line is limited there, and they're also, you're kind of looking at, is a car going to come into the slip lane, or is it going to continue? And then looking right from that same spot, you can see the sight line's kind of limited because you're on the inside of the curve. Moving on to the other two intersections. So there's stop signs for the I-95 northbound off-ramp, and then a yield sign for the on-ramp. And then at the local road, there's stop signs on either leg, but up and down Route 614 is free flow. So here's a picture looking left from the off-ramp from one of the left turning lane. So you can see the sight line's limited, and you have the bridge there, so the rail on the bridge kind of prevents sight line across. And then here's looking left from the right turn lane, and you again see the sight line's limited, and we'll show in a couple more slides that there's actually a lot of crashes at this location, because you can kind of imagine people are looking to go through here, but they're looking back and not looking the direction they're driving. A lot of rear end crashes there. Then down at this southern intersection, you can see the sight lines are still limited, not as bad as the other two, but some restrictions there. So here's some of the crash data. We looked at a 3-year crash history of January 2020 through January of 2023. So just at the northern intersection here, there's a total of 13 crashes with 7 injuries in that 3-year period. So you can see one of those crashes was a rear end over here, and with 1 injury there, but most of them were angle type crashes up here. And specifically, 5 crashes with 3 injuries for the vehicles coming this way and people exiting that way. So you kind of think how that is with the sight lines we were showing earlier, and they're on the inside of a curve, so a lot of angle crashes there. And then 1 fixed object crash, someone might have hit a guide rail further up the road. Then looking at the other 2 intersections, so you can see at the central intersection, that one I mentioned with 20 crashes, rear end crashes right there, which had 6 injuries, and 29 total crashes at the intersection, and then some other angle crashes here as well. So in general, like here, some trouble maybe pulling out, with high speeds going through there, and then same thing at the southern intersection, 3 total crashes, but each with the vehicle pulling out. So these tables just kind of summarize that data and just show that, I think this is blocked here, but at this intersection, 13 total crashes, 10 were the angle type. And then at the other intersection 2, 29 total crashes, 24 were rear end. And then at the southern intersection, all 3 were angle type. So more on the existing conditions. The posted speed on the road is 40 miles per hour. I'll just jump through this relatively quick. But this basically just shows And these pictures are going from north to south. So it's got the northern intersection here, then the central intersection, and the southern one. And this just shows the speeds, 55 miles per hour on the main road. A little further south is 45 miles per hour. And down here, we have 60 miles per hour. And we actually have a 4% downgrade when you're coming towards that intersection. So it's pretty steep down and high speeds coming in. And average daily traffic around 8,100, and further south, 10,000 cars per day. And then the side road, Sandy Hollow Road, about 2,000 cars per day, 30 to 40 miles per hour speeds. So the purpose and need of this project is to improve safety and reduce queues by addressing the geometric and operational deficiencies along Route 614 at its intersections with I-95 northbound and southbound ramps and Sandy Hollow Road. So improve safety and reduce queues is the main goal. Intersection control evaluation, this is a new policy and process that we've had at CTDOT to basically look at intersections when we're going to do something and make sure we're considering everything and looking through the different possible alternatives at fair value. And it's a 3-stage process where we look at the control types, then assess the control types, and then make recommendations. So in the case of this project, we looked at the no-build condition, and we always do that just for comparison purposes. Then we also looked at traffic signal and single-lane roundabout. Some other ones you might look at would be like all-way stop, but that wasn't really applicable here, or maybe some more complex intersections for certain things. So 3 ones that we looked at here, and we looked at traffic operations, safety, multimodal accommodations, pedestrian and bike accommodations, and environmental and utility and right-of-way impacts. And we looked at that for all 3 types at all 3 intersections. And ultimately, we found that the single-lane roundabout was the best at all 3 intersections, and that's because of shorter peak hour delays, significant safety benefits such as fewer conflict points, slower speeds, removal of severe crash types, and then there's also the wrong way prevention, reduced vehicle emissions, less maintenance, and better for pedestrians. And Scott and Joe will go into some of these benefits more. So I'll pass it over to Scott now to continue.
Thank you. So in Connecticut, we've been doing roundabouts for about 20 years, designing and constructing on state roadways. We've got about 10 on our state roadway system now, and about 20 to 30 more on the municipal systems. A lot of those were administered through Department of Transportation's LOTSIP program. We've had fantastic success with them in terms of safety. They work really, really well for all users, including bicycles, pedestrians, motor vehicles. When you approach a roundabout, it's yield. Pull up to the yield, look to your left. If you have a gap, turn right, enter the roundabout. When you exit, it's a right turn. Right in, right out. There's no lefts, there's no crossing maneuvers, very simple. For our cyclists, very safe also, that kind of light blue line going through the middle of the roundabout, the circular roadway. That's this woman over here, very confident rider. That's where we want our bicycles to be. With low speeds at roundabouts, 15 to 25 miles an hour, experienced cyclists keep up very well with traffic going through there. They're being seen, they're being safe right out there with traffic, keeping up with the cars. A less experienced cyclist, this guy down here in the bottom left, gonna leave the shoulder, bike lane, exit onto the sidewalk, and he's gonna walk as a pedestrian. So as a pedestrian crossing the roundabout, come over to the crosswalk, look to your left. You're only crossing 1 lane of traffic at a time. Look to your left. If you got a gap, go out to the refuge island in the middle, stop, look to your right. If you get a gap, you can cross the rest of the way. Same for a cyclist or a pedestrian. Children on bikes would use it that way. Roundabouts are safer because they have less conflict points. There's no left turns at roundabouts. A conventional intersection has 32 conflict points. That's all these bubbles here in the middle. This is where vehicles have cross in front of one another, where they could collide. That could be an all-way stop. That could be a traffic signal. Roundabouts, it's right in, right out. 8 conflict points. With no left turns, there's nobody crossing directly in front of anyone. You don't have those severe type crashes, those T-bone angle type crashes where typically creates injuries. and the more severe injuries. Here's the 8 conflict points compared to 32. In Connecticut, with our program so far, 5 of the roundabouts we looked at, 81% reduction in severe crashes, 44% reduction in overall crashes. We're right there with the national average. Federal Highways reporting a 78% reduction in severe crashes, 48% reduction in overall crashes, and we're right there with those first 5 roundabouts we built on state roadways. And we know roundabouts are safer for pedestrians because of the lower speed. If a pedestrian is impacted by a motor vehicle at 20 miles an hour, 9 out of 10 survive that type of crash. But when a pedestrian is impacted at speeds over 40 miles an hour, only 1 out of 10 typically survives. So we can save lives with roundabouts, especially pedestrians or vulnerable users, cyclists. Better for the environment too. In Carmel, Indiana, they calculated a 24,000 gallons of gasoline savings by just 1 roundabout implemented. That's because they're more efficient. We don't have vehicles idling at roundabouts. Looking at this intersection here in Guilford on Route 1, kind of an awkward configured intersection, very, very poor traffic operation. We knew the roundabout was the right solution there. Improved traffic operation significantly, much easier to navigate, much slower speeds, especially in the off-peak hour. You're not going to drive through that intersection very fast. 15 to 25 miles an hour is all you're going to do through there. You have nice sidewalks, place for pedestrians to go. We've got nice crosswalks. And here's how that's working. And one thing to pay attention to here is concurrent movement on all legs. This video is a little jumpy, but notice the slow speeds. You have multiple legs of the intersection accessing the intersection at one time. And that's what improves efficiency. Nobody's going fast through this intersection. Very, very safe. And you don't have the delay you would have at a traffic signal where somebody's just sitting there waiting. So we've been very, very successful with the roundabouts we've built so far. Joe? So that one, we reduced crashes by 60% and injuries by 43% in that Guilford location on Route 1 state roadway.
Thanks, Scott. So there's an NCHRP guidance, which is a federal guidance document put out by Federal Highway. It just got recently updated on 1043. And in that, it has a chapter that talks about roundabouts at interchanges. And we have a partial cloverleaf interchange out here, so it's like a viable location for a roundabout. So as Nick talked about earlier, the roundabout geometrics, the way it's designed, it kind of really makes it difficult to make a wrong way maneuver going the opposite way down the off-ramp because of that snag point that's created by that splitter island geometrics. So here's just some examples of various locations. Most of them here are shown in Wisconsin of roundabouts within corridors relative to interchanges. I'd also like to note that there is a concept design being developed as a part of the signal removal project on Route 9 in Middletown that's proposing a roundabout and an off-ramp. So before we go into our alternatives, I just want to talk about our basic roundabout elements. So those splitter islands, as Scott was talking about earlier, Nick, about reducing speeds and how that's achieved. And that is with the use of splitter islands. It's used to slowly take those vehicles from those higher speeds on the approaches to the circulatory roadway. We're trying to get that 20 to 25 mile per hour range. As well as a truck apron. So our roundabouts are designed to accommodate a larger tractor trailer as shown here. And it's designed that the cab of the truck is on the circulatory roadway, but the trailer mounts the truck apron. As well as also part of a roundabout design, an important feature is a central island feature, and that's a vertical feature to alert drivers of a change in roadway geometrics. It also allows the opportunity of a gateway treatment, as seen here with the flagpole and sign here, as well as landscaping. Also an important aspect is the sidewalks to allow for pedestrians and bicyclists to maneuver the intersection. So here is the signalized intersection alternative that was presented back in 2022. It was proposing 3 signalized intersections at all locations. Modified geometry, compared to the existing, it was adding additional turning lanes and turning pockets to really improve the intersection capacity, as well as address the delays that we'll be talking about on the future traffic slides. Also, our concept is addressing bridge repairs over I-95, and it's in reconstructing and providing sidewalks. However, it's just noting that it's only basically at the southern intersection. As a part of this design, you can see here, we are proposing a crosswalk at this location, crossing across that. Is there any way we can move the picture down? Thank you. It's across 4 lanes of roadway, totaling 62 feet of crossing distance. That's pretty substantial crossing distance for someone to walk across, leaving them unprotected if there's a chance that someone doesn't stop at the light. Here's our roundabout alternative. All 3 locations are proposed to be roundabouts. Our modified geometry is basically we're trying to create curvature to slower those vehicle speeds as they traverse through each of those intersections, as well as shifting the alignment to reduce speeds through the corridor. It's going to require a lot of full depth reconstruction due to the shifting of the alignment and the installation of the splitter islands, truck aprons, center islands, etc. Also like to note on this concept, we are providing sidewalks throughout our entire project limits across the bridge over I-95 and then connecting into the existing sidewalk network to the north, as well as connecting into the existing sidewalk network on this residential street. Here's just a zoomed in look at the northern intersection, and here's a zoomed in look at the central and southern intersection. So as you can see, those sidewalk networks are allowed around all approaches. For bicyclists that don't feel comfortable taking the lane, they could use the sidewalks to traverse the corridor. Also, I'd like to note that we have a 2-stage crossing, as Scott previously discussed. Our distances are 14 feet each. We have a pedestrian refuge that's created by the splitter islands, so if someone needs to take a break, they can sit in that island and then traverse to the other side. So as a part of our analysis, traffic volumes were collected. They were collected in September. We're in the process of actually getting them collected during the summer months and updating this data. So they were collected in 2022, and we projected out 20 years. So here is the AM peak Q lengths, the 95th percentile Q lengths, and along with the associated delay. So the no bill is defined in red, the signalized intersection is defined in green, and the roundabout is defined in purple. I just like to note that in most of these cases, our Q length and our delay in terms of duration in seconds is substantially lower for the roundabout option at this location. In terms of an overall level of service at this location, level of service is just merely a letter grade of how well the intersection performs, A through F, A being the best, F being the worst. You notice that in the no-build conditions, since Route 614 is free flow, it was A, but if we went with the signalized intersection option here, it would be going down to a B versus a roundabout was an A. Similar situation in the PM peak hour, the roundabout's performing substantially better, same level of service. Moving on to the central and southern intersections, what we see at this location is long queues that are forming on the exit ramp. It has been noted to us that sometimes they even go all the way back to the main line. You can see here we have a queue length of 216 feet on the exit ramp with 22.6 seconds of delay for a signalized intersection versus the roundabout 41 feet with 7.5 seconds of delay. So in terms of the overall level of service at this location, in the no build, we have an A, signalized roundabout, a B, and I'm not sure on the roundabout. I did that visual cue. But in the PM, we're seeing substantial no-build delay on the off-ramp, totaling almost 700 feet. The queue lengths for a signalized intersection is pretty substantial too. However, roundabouts performing substantially better, which was really driving the need for this project, is to address that delay. So overall, our Division of Traffic recommended a single-lane roundabout be advanced for all 3 of these intersections. So as previously mentioned, that central island allows for the opportunity to accommodate landscape features within it. So here's just some various examples of the previous location that Scott presented on in Guilford. We kind of incorporated some stone as well as trees, and then there was also a welcome sign that was added. But these central islands kind of allow the opportunity of anything that's special to the community can kind of be incorporated into there. And we welcome working in with the local garden clubs or other groups that are interested in having a say of what could potentially go in that central island. So here's an existing condition that was done by our landscape design unit, and they rendered in our proposed roundabouts. So you can see here, we're anticipating some type of trees to be put there, but again, we open new ideas about different things that can be accommodated in there. But you could see as this picture, we're really inducing slower speeds to the corridor by our use of roadway geometrics to allow for a more safer corridor for all users. So in terms of maintenance considerations, for the signalized intersections, following completion of a project, we would enter into a project authorization letter, also known as a PAL, that would basically put the maintenance and liability of maintaining the sidewalks and ramps over to the municipalities. But with a roundabout option, in addition to the sidewalk maintenance, the landscaping would also need to be maintained by the town after the 1-year planting period, warranty period would be closed out by the department and then transferred over to the municipality to maintain that. So in terms of project cost, signalized, for our conceptual estimate, we're at $6.4 million for a signalized intersection alternative. And with that additional full depth, that additional concrete, and all those other features, we're at $12.5 million for a roundabout concept. This project's utilizing 80% federal funds, 20% state funds. And based off of the outcome of this meeting, our schedule is going to get updated to reflect where we move forward. So just in a summary comparison, on the left-hand side, we have a signalized option. On the right, and then we're just going to break down. In terms of cost, the signalized option is better. However, in terms of queues, delays, and overall level of service, the roundabout performed significantly better. Also, the roundabout gives us that wrong way prevention aspect that we were kind of looking to address here. Fewer conflict points and slower speeds lead to less severe crashes and lower frequency of severe crashes. It's more pedestrian friendly because we have those shorter crossing distance with the roundabout versus the signalized intersection. In terms of environmental, we're constantly processing vehicles instead of having vehicles idle due to signalized intersection. In terms of wetland and permitting impacts, we believe they're both marginal. Both might have some minor impacts to the adjacent wetlands, but we're trying to minimize that. In terms of pavement construction, the roundabout has more full depth reconstruction, whereas the signalized intersection has more mill and overlay, which is leading to a lower cost, as well as constructability of the signalized intersection is a lot easier. However, we do have a proven track record of constructing roundabouts in challenging situations, and I believe we would be able to do that here. And also in terms of maintenance, the roundabout's a lot easier because we don't have to maintain a traffic signal. And overall, based off the intersection control evaluation process that Nick recommended, we are proposing a modern roundabout here. So before I would open up to discussion, I just want to note, because I didn't talk about this early in my presentation, we're just at a concept level right now here. We're looking to gain information today to see if the community would be acceptable for us to further develop our concept, to bring it to a preliminary design, which is a 30% design, to then bring it back in front of the council and the community as a normal public info, and then solicit feedback. So with that, I'd like to turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Berlin?
Thank you. I appreciate this presentation. I grew up on Allen Street in Mystic, so I used that exit in my younger years, and I would say probably not as good of a driver at that time. One of the bigger concerns even now is the northbound exit 89 backs up at certain parts of the later in the day or during busy tourist times where you're trying to get off the highway and people that aren't expecting it, it becomes a complete stop. So that then backs up onto the highway, which then creates a ripple effect. So I'm curious to see how this will enhance that. It looks like it may. The other concerns are, too, when you're coming off that same exit and you're heading right, you have Sandy Hollow. So you have people that are kind of going left, they're kind of heading left, and they're like looking right, and you have the people getting off going right, and you have people coming off Sandy Hollow and the other road right by the Mystic ambulance right there, right across the road that's right across from it. And what happens is many times I've gone off there and you just see people like go right into each other because they're anticipation, not knowing who's coming left or right. Also, this is heavily traveled. I mean, one of our great things was economic development, and Mystic has grown. These intersections are the same ones that I can remember, and I'm 45. The only thing that's changed that I can remember is a new stop sign on Sandy Hollow halfway down. That was never there before. You could just go straight through. So with that, though, we know that Mystic has grown, and so change is needed. So I like this concept. I'm very familiar with spending a lot of time in Cape Cod as a kid and as an adult. They have a lot of roundabouts in Cape Cod. And the other thing that's nice is if you miss, thinking of tourists that don't know the area late at night, it's a dark corner down there too. If you miss your turn, you can just loop, you can just stay in the roundabout and take another shot at it, which is nice. It gives you that second glance. So I'm definitely love these. Also, being a coastal community, we have to think about storm and storm readiness. How many times do you drive down Route 1 and the lights are out and everybody's like panicking because they're used to lights, who goes, who doesn't go? This is a great alternative. If there's ever a major storm, we're on the coast, you don't have to worry about signals going out. You just hop in and hop off, and you can get out of there. So just from a preliminary standpoint, I think this is a very interesting concept. I think it is well crafted thus far, and I think you guys put a lot of time and effort into it. As a person who uses that area quite frequently to this day, I think it will slow people down because I see people just gunning it all the way through the highway, down Cow Hill to 117. There's just like this straight path. I'm interested to see where it goes, but I definitely think it's time for some change there to kind of slow things down. It's definitely, I would say possibly an increased population using that off-ramp and on-ramps there. So I thank you for this presentation, and I'm excited to see what more comes out of it, but it's definitely a lot of thought has gone into it, and I remember it coming out a while back thinking about making change, so I'm hopeful to see where this goes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Rusk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for coming tonight and presenting this. This was a lot of great information. Just a couple of quick questions. Chief Fasaro and Chief Richards, do you have any concerns? I guess especially with the fire trucks and mobile police vehicles, I guess.
From a police standpoint, we had this briefing, as you were told a little while ago, in April, and I think that we kind of took it all in and also came to the same conclusion that this was safer. My interest is in those traffic accidents that occur at those intersections. We investigate. There have been some serious injuries, and my feeling is this would reduce it. And to the point of speed on that road, one of the questions that we asked at that time is maybe would it have a secondary effect of reducing speed on Allen Street? And it seems that it might. It certainly, from studies that these gentlemen shared with us back then during that briefing, that it would have a little bit of impact on that and possibly reduce speeds on Allen Street. So from a police standpoint, no, we're supportive of this. I see this being a positive thing.
Thank you.
Same with the fire department. Our main concern was response, getting through it. That's an essential route for us. We roughly make about 1,600 calls a year, and about 800 of them, about 50% of our call volume, we're going that route. We're coming out of the headquarters firehouse. We're taking the right, we're going down, and we're either hooking left on 95 to get down to the commercial area, the residential like Stone Ridge, Masonic Care, et cetera. And any call we have on the interstate, Highway 95, we're taking that route. So our main concern was just access, having enough room to get around the roundabout with our largest apparatus, but the group from the state have been more than accommodating for us. I had a quick little discussion with them tonight, and no problems. They feel that we're not going to have any issues. The center island, that we're going to be able to jump up on it with the apparatus to go across if we have to, if all the traffic's backed up with an accident in one of these roundabouts. So all of my concerns have been satisfactory, answered by them. So no, so far so good for us.
Wonderful, thank you. I know you said that the initial costs were all covered by federal and state dollars. What about repair costs? And how long do you anticipate this taking to construct? So I'm sorry, repair costs and how long to construct?
Repair cost, I don't anticipate anything. Maintenance, certainly there's maintenance. We have landscaping that has to be taken care of. The town would have to agree to the landscape plan that we develop. That certainly could be developed in a partnership with your town, Public Works, and any garden clubs or such you may have in town. The sidewalks will require snow removal. That's something that the town would have to take on. Any of the pavement structure that's built, that's a state route, so that's on DOT to take care of. That's ours, but our pavements in a road like that are typically going to last 10, 12 years before we have to resurface. So really don't foresee any cost beyond maintenance for a very long time. And your other question?
How long would it take to construct all three of these? And
Would
would you do
estimate
them-
2 years, 2 summers.
And do you do each one individually?
That would remain to seen, right? We haven't developed a staging plan yet. We're just not that far along. Our typical process would be to get some indication from the city that you're interested in pursuing this concept, and then we would develop 30% design plans. These are really just sketches on an aerial photo to date, so we really haven't designed this properly, but the next step would be, if we got to go ahead, do a full 3D design, bring it to 30%, and then come back out to a full public involvement meeting. And we'll put a little more thought into the staging at that point.
Thank you. I appreciate your information.
Yeah, I'll add to Scott's comments. So our landscape design unit typically kind of designs, they go for like native species, but also they want like a yearly pruning regimen to not get overgrown. But all that can be coordinated with like a local garden clubs. In Guilford, we worked with the local garden club, and we believe we had pretty good success down there. In terms of also another comment about illumination, we didn't talk about it on the presentation, but actually that's a main component also in roundabout designs. We want our central islands well lit. Is also due to this fact that we have high-speed approaches. Those would be lit to kind of notify drivers of that change in geometrics. And we've, the study you were kind of alerting to earlier, University of New Haven was studying 5 roundabouts. They kind of looked back at distances to see those vehicle speeds being reduced through there. So we believe that it will promote lower speeds through the corridor.
Thank you. I appreciate the fact that this will hopefully eliminate people going the wrong way onto the interstate. It's pretty hard to go from a roundabout into the wrong way onto the highway. Just for clarification, I'm not sure I understand. You said you would do the initial planting and then ask that the town
Yep.
cover that after that?
So we would coordinate, work together, come up with a list of species. It would be listed in our state contract, installed by a state contractor physically. There'd be a 1-year planting period, so once all the plants are in the ground, our landscape design unit comes back out, inspects them. If a plant's dying, we basically have a punch list that they have to replace it, and then after that 1-year period, then responsibility and maintenance is transferred over to the municipality.
Okay, thank you.
It's also an opportunity for municipal gateway signing, if that's something you're interested. We typically tell the municipality to provide the sign, and then we'll install it with the project, but that's something that could go in. Typically, those would have ground-mounted uplighting on them. Nice decorative feature. Some of the roundabouts we've had, flagpoles have gone in, but lots of opportunity in the future to discuss what you would like it to look like.
Thank you. Director Hanover, do you have any concerns with snow plowing, anything like that?
No, snow plowing, not at all. I mean, you know, it's a state road, they would do most of it. We just would come through Sandy Hollow and just continue on through the roundabout. The sidewalks, you know, as was stated, we do maintain those. They're concrete, so I'd expect they would last a long time. You know, we would take that on as part of our regular maintenance duty of that area. The only real additional maintenance would be the landscaping. You know, we'd have to ensure that whatever we put in there is, you know, low maintenance, and then, you know, probably partner with like they said, the local garden club or beautification committee or something like that to maintain these.
Okay, thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a former Navy Seabee and a construction worker, pictures are fantastic. Not much reading. But in any case, I have a bunch of questions. I may bounce around a little bit. Of the 20% that the state is required, how much of that would be asked of from the town?
Nothing.
Fantastic. Going great.
Besides, if you guys decided to put in a sign, we would ask you to purchase that and give that to us, but we would
Understood.
install it.
The only other municipal expense I'm not sure of could be energy cost for lighting.
Yep.
If the municipality currently pays the cost of energy for street lights on that road, some state routes, the municipality pays that.
And I'll add another thing, I think there's like a local water community. Part of work on this would only be 50% reimbursable, so if we had to relocate any town facility within, there would be that cost that would be passed down.
Understood.
That would be Aquarians, not the town.
Yeah, like any type of facility. I know, like I have a job right now down in Noank, and like we had a fire suppression line that had to get relocated, so.
Understood. Now, with that said, other than utilities that may have to be moved or adjusted, will there be any land ownership issues with our constituents or Groton? Or is
I
it all
believe the
on
way,
state
what we
property?
have laid out right now, as Scott mentioned earlier, it's mostly a 2D design. We haven't have the three-dimensional component, but most of it, I believe, would be within the state right-of-way.
Okay.
But as the design progresses, that would be communicated, and when we bring that to, like usually our next step would bring it to a town roads meeting, and like we'd kind of have this similar conversation, and we would present that, and as well as we'd be presenting those private property impacts at a public informational meeting.
Okay. My next question is, between the roundabouts, the speeds are going to stay maintained at 15, 20?
People sometimes pick up a little bit once you get outside the roundabout, but knowing that there's another roundabout coming up, it's going to slow down.
Will the signage be 15 to 20, though, between those?
The speed limit is typically not lowered. When I mentioned 15 to 20, 15 to 25, those are typically operating speeds that you see within the roundabout, meaning you just can't go faster than that. The geometry really restricts you from going any faster than that. So it's really the roadway design that influences the speed. And I don't expect you're going to see speeds much over 25 or 30 between the roundabouts.
Yeah, so both roundabouts are out, the central and the southern one are about 130 feet difference between the two of them, between the exit and the entry. There would be advisory signs, those yellow signs, but it's not like a regulatory sign. But yeah, just based off the geometrics, it's really not going to promote faster exit speeds like you would leaving the northern location.
Well, that adds another question that I have as far as exit speeds. Where are the speed limit signs? How far are the speed limit signs going to be away from these, the rotaries, where people will want to ramp back up to the regular speed they were at, like getting on the highway? I mean, you're coming off an on-ramp, coming off the rotary to go on an on-ramp. people are going to want to gun it, is that sign that says X amount of miles an hour faster than the rotary.
Current
Where
posted
is it?
speed limit signs will not change. So wherever they are today, those signs would remain. Our typical influence on speed with a roundabout is maybe 800 to 1,000, maybe 1,200 feet beyond the limits of the roundabout. And then we notice people start to pick up speed again. But certainly within this area, it's going to change driver behavior significantly.
Okay, and I think my last question, wow, I got plenty of time left, too. My last question, on, I just went brain dead, what the name of that street? Sandy Hollow Road. There is a daycare that has lots of moms and dads and nanas and nanos bringing their kids in and out twice a day. And on the other side of the road is an ambulance company. Have you given any thought to how you, during construction, how you're going to accommodate those two businesses?
Well, the area would be open to traffic at all times. We would not close the state route. So we will stage this so that we always maintain traffic. There will be times during the day where we have to go to alternating one way, very likely in the off-peak hours, to pour some of the concrete, build some of the areas, but we'll always have one lane of traffic passing through.
And like they're probably for paving operations, we probably might have night work. But we would kind of lay what we kind of envision as a construction schedule out when we go to our public info. But I would imagine mostly day work with alternating one way, as Scott mentioned.
Yeah, all of the roundabouts we've built to date, we've maintained traffic through the area. The most difficult is paving, and we've done that at night a few times under maybe a one-night closure or something, 2-day closure, but that's the only operation that I would foresee. We may have a detour, would be the actual paving, but most of the time we're keeping one lane open through all of the construction.
Fantastic. I think I'm done, other than, I am all for it.
All right, Counselor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen. This sounds like a terrific idea. I just did a lot of driving around in Italy, which uses extensive use of these traffic islands, and especially the doubled up ones, and driving in a country that you don't know very well, you can move around really easily. So I think this would be a great addition to that area, which is kind of tricky, and having driven over much of that kind of area, it's a great idea. I also like the one that you have in Salem. I think that one works really well. And I didn't understand, when you talked about the truck apron, I always thought that internal sort of flat area was just in case you didn't hit it quite right. But now I realize that's for trucks or fire engines or something to kind of have some expansion. So you can kind of bump up on it. It doesn't kick you back out onto the road. So.
It's how we accommodate those larger vehicles, but also keep speeds low for passenger cars by narrowing the lanes.
Yeah, so, and I like and I'm anticipating going to do it here too. In Salem, there's very, very good marking on the road that kind of gets you into the right lane to go to the right place. So is that what you anticipate doing here too?
A benefit here is these are only going to be one lane.
Okay.
Whereas Salem has a left turn lane and then a right turn bypass on Route 82. These will be single lane all the way around, single lane entry, single lane in the roundabout, very simple.
So you won't need that extensive road marking system that you have there, so. And I'm very familiar, in fact, I don't like really getting off at exit 89, especially going southbound, because the visibility is so poor looking north and south, you can't really see. So I understand, why there's so many accidents. I guess, Chief Asaro, maybe you can answer this question. You talk about the extensive number of accidents that have happened at this whole complex of intersections. Can you talk about a little bit, if this was not sort of a high accident rate, what would be the difference in accidents? Like you mentioned sort of 20 coming off by the Sandy Hollow side. What would be a normal number if this intersection was working correctly?
I'm not sure I understand your question. So are you asking if they put signal lights here as opposed to
No, I'm just sort
the...
of saying, what's the ranking? This, I now understand that this intersection of all of this has a lot more accidents than other intersections and exits, and how does it compare?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of vehicles coming off and getting back onto the highway on both of those exits, right? The northbound and southbound. Some of the local residents know that's the way to get to Mystic. Others just happen to use it for other reasons, local traffic. From what, the briefing that we received a month ago and what you saw tonight, it shows the amount of accidents that have been recorded through presumably data we've provided, and they've gotten through the Connecticut Crash Data Repository at UConn, as we field your. And so that's all real numbers. Those are all accidents that have been investigated on the ramps, on the roadway. And clearly, every time that you have an intersection, there's a high likelihood of crashes are going to happen there. It's just a fact of it. People go through red lights. They may not observe in areas like this where there's no light. They may not observe or perceive the speed of the vehicle that's approaching them at that intersection. They exit and it causes a crash. So obviously, speeds contribute to severity of crashes. So the roundabouts would reduce the speed if there were a crash. The likelihood of it being a severe injury or significant injury, crash, or fatality is much lower. Again, I think this is, from a safety standpoint, I think it's a real good plan, and I think it would mitigate some of the effects of some of the crashes that we do have there.
I mean, I guess
And
what
reduce
I'm
them.
assuming is that the level of crashes is what flagged this exchange.
Yeah,
Being one of the, it's a poor one that needed to be relooked at. So is it real high on the list, or medium high on the list, or?
Well, this project is more substantially driven by traffic delays and traffic backing up onto the 95 ramp because of the inefficiency of the existing intersection. It's so poor in traffic operation. You have a lot of delay in people getting off the ramp and exiting. The traffic starts building up the ramp almost, and it was mentioned by the counselor, up onto 95, creating turbulence and, possible conflict at expressway speeds, interstate speeds, where a crash occurred up there. It could be horrific. So, it's not only a safety project at the intersection, but improving traffic operation so it flows much better, flows much smoother, and we don't get the delays and the backups.
So it's a congestion problem as well as a.
Right, those rear ends, it comes down to gap acceptance, right? If you're in a longer queue and you finally get your chance, the person behind you might think that gap is okay to make that maneuver, whereas the person in front, and that's where you have that rear end collision. Whereas that roundabout, you're approaching at a slower speed, it's more of a rolling queue. You just have to look one way to see if there's a conflict, and then you find your gap. But yeah, it was mainly capacity driven, but there's also safety issues to the geometrics out there.
You mentioned the Salem location. By memory, that one had 10 injuries per year. 27 crashes, but 10 injuries per year. We got that down to 1 injury per year currently with the roundabout.
So they really, really help.
Dropped injuries by 90%.
Okay, terrific. All right. No, I'm just thinking of, as residents are watching this and thinking about it, and just kind of going through it, that, what's really driving this and why do we want to do it? And congestion and getting.
It's strongly congestion, but the safety benefits are substantial also.
Okay. All right. No, I like everything I see. I think I'm in full support of what you're doing, and I think it's great. And thank you for coming in and doing the presentation.
Thank you. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I'm in full support of it as well. That's a difficult area up there, so I'm glad you're developing the time and putting the time in for this. Most of my questions have been asked. I just have a couple of quick ones. I noticed there's, in your work, in the examples, I didn't see where anywhere there was these items off of an interstate. Are there ones off of an interstate anywhere else in the state of Connecticut?
Just that one that not physically built. There's that concept that was outlined in Middletown. As a roundabout committee members, we actually just reviewed one, I believe as a concept at the Rocky Neck Connector.
Yes, that would be off on 95 too.
I-95. So they are going to be becoming more and more prevalent, especially with the intersection control evaluation process. More roundabouts might be flagged in other locations.
So is it likely those two will be completed before this one? So there'll be possibly some learning?
No.
No, this one would be the first?
Nope. And, additional response to your question, although we've been designing and building roundabouts in Connecticut now over 20 years, initially it was pretty hard to get local acceptance on roundabouts. A lot of communities were just not as willing to listen as you folks are and understanding the safety benefits that could happen. There was a lot of fear because we didn't have any in Connecticut, and the more we've built, everybody's gotten a little more comfortable with them. we're gonna see a lot more roundabouts in Connecticut. I'd mentioned we have 10 on our state roadways so far, and maybe another 20, 30 on the municipal roadways. In 10 years, I have confidence we're gonna have 100 roundabouts in Connecticut, because a lot of municipalities are asking for them. We're going to have roundabouts at the end of interstate ramps, absolutely. If it's not here, it's going to be somewhere else 2 or 3 years later. It's going to happen, because they're a huge safety success.
Okay, and again, I'm in full support of it. I just didn't know if there's anything different, because it seems like it's a little bit of a different setup coming off in interstate. So I didn't know if there were any changes in speed or anything like that. Again, it's not my area, but I just didn't know if you had any other examples, so that's fine. How about any examples where there are 3 roundabouts within such a short period of time? Not period of time, short location. I know there's 2 in New London, there's 2 a few other places, but I'm wondering if do you have examples where there's 3?
We have 2 under construction in Haddam, next to Connecticut River on Route 82. Currently under construction, but not completed yet. And we also have 3 proposed on Route 82 in Norwich, Connecticut. There's not under construction yet, but we'll be going out to bid soon.
In Norwich on 82?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, there's 2 in Glastonbury on Route 94. Those have been in operation for
Like 7, 8 years now.
7, 8 years.
Okay. I was just asking whether, there's 3, because I'm just thinking from the driver perspective, it's, I think it's a lot doing 3 circles, but in any event. I think you answered, Jill asked a question, Council Rusk, about the on-ramp, so that's good. Question on summertime. As you know, Mystic's extremely busy. Would it be possible, or would it make any sense to not do any construction from the June, July, August, September timeframe? Could a project be done that way?
It would be very difficult, but those are things we're willing to work with the town and try to stage as we feel, works out the best. If you try to build certain materials, we just can't build in the winter. We can't put asphalt down in the winter. There's temperature requirements. Concrete pouring in the winter, freezing months, you just don't get good quality out of it. And the more time we lose in the summer, the longer the project's gonna take.
Okay. Thank you. I just don't know the traffic counts, how it is in that busy period versus the non-busy period. So I didn't know if there's something to consider maybe. And maybe this is a question for Town Manager Burt. Would we consider sidewalks from, let's say, their southernmost on-ramp up to Mystic, because there's sidewalks like halfway up there now? Would we consider including sidewalks on the way up? Like right now, when you get off 89, there's
The
no
council on
sidewalk.
our team would like to pay for it, certainly.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yeah,
if that could
so
be
our
done.
proposal is connected into the existing sidewalk network to the south.
To the south?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then basically running it all the way up to, I forget the intersection name, the signalized intersection that we'd be tying into. There's existing just ramp there for pedestrian push button. We'd be tying into that.
Just something for us to look at, because I know there's a sidewalk advisory committee that wants to make all these things work. So I think that was all my
Yeah,
questions for now.
as future coordination, we have no objections to working with that group. John, if you, in our future meetings, you can include them, that'd be great.
Okay. All right, thank you for all your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Counselor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just, thank you guys for your presentation. Lived in Virginia where they had roundabouts, and it got a little hectic because Virginia's busy, especially down in Norfolk. So I dislike them, but for safety reasons, I will use it, but I'm not comfortable going in and out because some people just don't pay attention. And how many accidents have happened because of roundabouts? I know there's a minimum few, but how many have you noticed across the board?
Of the 10 roundabouts we have constructed on state roadways so far, accidents have reduced. Injuries have gone down significantly. We don't have a single site in Connecticut with a roundabout where, on state roadway, where crashes have gone up or injuries have gone up in response to the roundabout. The roundabout is always safer, substantially safer. The only time that may not be the case is if it's a multi-lane roundabout and you have 2 lanes circulating and 2 lanes entering, and we're not proposing that here at all. Single lane entering, single lane circulating, very, very simple. Just like the picture I showed you in Guilford with the video, it would look identical to that in operation. Some states, and we don't have any in Connecticut yet, have multi-lane roundabouts. You have 2 lanes entering and 2 lanes circulating. Drivers get confused as to which lane they're supposed to be in on the entry. They also get confused as to which lane to yield to. It's a lot of data to process. A lot of older and younger drivers have difficulty with it. Those roundabouts have, in other states, generated an increase in minor crashes. Not injury crashes, but property damage type crashes have gone up. But that's not what we're planning here today.
So my second question is, there 12.5 million per roundabout? Or just a total project?
That's the total estimated construction cost at this point,
Of all three?
for all 3, for the entire project.
Okay. And my question is for Chief Fazaro. Is 614 an evacuation route too, or no?
We use 117. That's an evacuation route.
So, okay. You know, yeah.
I do know what you're talking about. I don't believe it is, because it comes to a T intersection at 184 at the end. I think 117 is a straight route, so I think it pushes up over that way. I mean, if people were leaving from that neighborhood, yeah, they would have to come out through some of those roads, but I don't know that that whole thing is identified, but I can find out, make sure.
Thank you.
Huge benefit, adding on to that, and one of your counselors mentioned already, if we did have an emergency, if we did lose power, the signals don't function, they go to flash or you get nothing. With a roundabout, you don't need power. It's all yield. Very, very simple to get in and out if you have an emergency. As a matter of fact, in Florida, when they did have some hurricanes, the police officers would set up mini roundabouts with traffic cones where the traffic signal was, just to get traffic through because they didn't have power.
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Counselor Merritt?
Yes, I recall your remarks previously of maintenance of the roundabout. And do you prefer milling over full repair?
So following, majority of this, we're anticipating full depth reconstruction, just based off of what we're doing. It'll just probably be faster and easier, give us a better product, but our intent is once we leave here, then, as Scott previously mentioned, that 10 to 12 years to be on a regular maintenance schedule that is just a mill and fill, mill down 2 inches.
Milling last 10 years?
Typically, yes, depending on what section of roadway is, based off the volume, the truck traffic.
Yeah. I've observed, not to be offensive, but I've observed a section of Route 184 north into Stonington. And I think that was done 2, maybe 3 years ago.
The response to your question cannot be applied throughout the entire state. It's very dependent on the condition of the existing pavement structure, how much is there to begin with, and condition of the substructures before you pave and mill. So a brand new constructed roadway like we'd have with these roundabouts, a new surface on it, absolutely would expect to get 10 years out of it, and future overlays for our lifetime in this room, 10 years. But if you have condition of roadway that is poorly cracked, severely cracked, lots of potholes, deformations, a quick mill and overlay on that, you're putting a Band-Aid on it and trying to extend the life. But it's possibly in need of full depth reconstruction.
Just for note, I spent 41 years with the Highway Department, and I'm more or less acquainted with road repairs. And I would prefer a complete road rebuild over an overlay. And I've been through New London, the 2 roundabouts they have there. They're almost like they merge one into the other. And that's kind of hectic at time when quitting time at the end of the day. But people are dealing with it. I've never seen a holdup or an accident there. Traffic does move until it gets down to Bank Street and Howard Street at the traffic lights. Then it becomes a difficulty. But I'm in favor of this.
Chief?
Just a correction on Counselor Parker's, my response to her question. Yes, it is an evacuation route, but it pushes people to 95.
Thank you.
Are you all set?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so your presentation was pretty thorough, because some of the questions I had, you already answered them. It's so much more expensive, though, the roundabout, than to put in a traffic light. And I thought traffic lights were expensive. So, but this is sort of basically a one and done, and then just maintenance. That's
Yes.
basically it. Or traffic lights, Mr. Hanover, how much are they? Approximately? $500,000, and those last about how long?
We're usually around every 20 years, we schedule a replacement of a traffic signal.
For about $500,000.
Yeah, for just the
Okay.
equipment, right?
Okay. So I will tell you, I go through the Salem one every single week, and I don't particularly care for that one because it sort of seems like there's two lanes coming in, and you have different lanes to go which directions, and it's a little bit more confusing, but I do like that I don't have to stop at a stoplight, so I do like that. I went to Glastonbury actually last night, and I saw the two that were near each other. They are the single lanes, and I will say, I think we probably slowed down to about 10 miles an hour, because I paid attention because I knew this was coming. And I do know that when, as your picture showed, you come into a straight, but then there's like a slight turn, so that you really have to slow down, and it does narrow down. And there's curbing there, so you do slow down, and then you're trying to merge into it. So there is quite a slow down process there. And I think we went in maybe at around 10 miles an hour or so. But it was one lane, and I did experiencing that one and then Salem, I did appreciate the Glastonbury ones a lot more. So if that, you're saying we're going to get similar
Yes.
to the Glastonbury ones, I am all for the one lane ones, because I greatly appreciate those.
They'll be slightly larger in diameter, but it's still a single lane entry versus
Right.
not a multi-lane entry like Salem.
Salem is the multi, like,
Yes.
there's two
Yeah.
lanes to get into it, and then if you're in the right one, you can just go basically around. So, yeah, I much appreciate it. I also, because there has been talk of other locations in our town by residents, Route 117 and 184 intersection is a very tough one in our community. And then it has been mentioned, I believe, by the chief, that's top of Fort Hill. And then also Route 1 over by Oleo, in that big 5 lanes, I don't even know what it's called there. There's so many things that come into that, and it's a mess. But these are other places that I was thinking to myself, these would also be good places for roundabouts that would keep traffic flowing, that would cut down on accidents in our community, and I thought that would be great. And I also know that change is hard in for many communities, because we saw pushback, especially in Norwich, when they got their roundabouts in the downtown area. Do you know how the ones in Norwich are going at this moment?
Norwich has 2 phases. It was originally proposed as 6 roundabouts. Out of opposition and requests from the state rep, we were asked to reduce the number of roundabouts, and we went down to 4 roundabouts. So 2 projects with 2 roundabouts each. Phase 1 with the first 2 roundabouts is underway and should be advertised for construction next summer. That's going to be built. We'll probably have a public meeting on phase 2 sometime in the next year to talk about the other 2 roundabouts.
Okay.
But the concerns in Norwich are primarily businesses in the area that would be impacted due to traffic congestion and a lot of fear of people going to a different grocery store while the project is under construction. As we've gone through multiple public involvement meetings in that community, the complaints were not so much geared toward the roundabout itself, the change. It was primarily about delays of traffic and people avoiding the area and avoiding the local businesses, and possibly businesses moving out of the area because of low income, low sales. That's what was driving that community's decision. But those are moving ahead.
All right. Well, I will say that I've been to Colorado, and they have numerous roundabouts. I don't remember seeing too many traffic lights out there when I was traveling throughout Colorado. There were roundabouts everywhere, and I thought it was wonderful. And the traffic just flows. And you have to think that they snowplow that in Colorado. They snowplow all the time. So that works out for them. They've had, fire trucks and police cars and all that, dealing with all this stuff. So if it works in other communities, I think it would be wonderful for us as well. We're going on the second round. Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If all goes as planned and you don't have any issues going through all the steps you need to go through, when do you suspect the first shovel will touch the ground? I know it's a guesstimate, I get it,
I would say about 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
We have to go work through our environmental process, our permitting process, development of contract plans, specifications, estimate, release for advertisement, solicit bids, award and whatnot, utility coordination.
We have to have a public
And a
involvement.
public involvement period.
This is not our public meeting. You know, at some point, we move ahead, DOT will have a public involvement meeting, we'll put a notice in the paper, we'll put notices on the web and social media, you know, we'll have a large-scale community meeting to take feedback.
And my last question of the night on this subject is, we all know what's happening in this administration in Washington. If that 80% doesn't show up, when and where does this project stop? At what stage?
We don't anticipate that happening, but it's something pretty difficult to plan for. Our funding from Washington comes from the transportation bill. It's a law. It's not something that's a grant that can easily be stopped. It's a law. It takes Congress to vote on that, to change the distributions to each of the states and how much we get from the transportation program. So in my career of 30-plus years with the DOT, that's not something we've had an issue with. State funding becomes more of a problem in poor economy. That 20% match is what we have to watch more closely. But the federal funding coming from the transportation bill is pretty consistent.
For now. All right, thank you very much.
If it were a grant, I would have a different response, but it's not a grant.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Bordelon.
Thank you. Right before you get to exit 89 going northbound, it goes from like 3 lanes, and then that one on the right collapses right before you get to exit 89. And there's always a lot of accidents there currently because, again, when they're backing up, you have people like racing because that lane's ending, and then all of a sudden it like downslopes and exit 89 pops out, and then there's cars backed up coming off of it. Is there any consideration, I just wanted to make sure that dynamic from the highway is going to fit into the tapestry of this roundabout? That's my question.
We have a study project for 95 itself to look at what might need to be done for safety and operational improvements on 95. So these are a breakout from that and done separately. And we're not going to get into 95 work with this roundabout program at the end of the ramps.
Right, okay. I think it may
But
actually improve it in the sense.
We do have confidence we're going to improve safety on 95 at the exit because we won't have traffic backing up the ramp onto 95.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's one of the big concerns that I've always noticed is there's, you're just not expecting a dead stop coming off of a highway. And after that 3-lane merges, people are kind of like speeding up to kind of merge in, and if you're not from here, you don't know that highway could back up, and then they're just like looking to merge over, and then exit 89 comes with a tail hanging out, and it can be pretty tough, but yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see how that all, but again, as I stated, I think it's good for the environment. I think it's great for, being a coastal community, not having stoplights, being able to get in and out of it. I think this is a good basic concept to move forward with that you guys have done, and it'll be interesting to see what the public perception will be. But I think if nothing else, what if there's opposition to 3 roundabouts? What if people are kind of like,
We come back and talk.
is there any alternative plans to this, like by reducing this to 2? I'm not saying that's what I want, but.
It's not something that we would want to entertain. We have confidence that the 3 roundabouts is really the right solution. Putting the 2 roundabouts at the end of the exit ramps and entrance ramps for the expressway and interstate, we know that's potentially going to save lives if somebody could happen to go on the wrong way. We're going to correct the operation issue with the backups on that 95, and we're going to reduce speeds through that whole corridor. So we're very confident it's the right solution in terms of safety and operation, and we'd really like to move ahead with that. We think it's the right thing for your community. If you pull a roundabout, the speeds are going to go up, and you may have additional conflict points. So, you know, why? We've got the roundabouts there. It's a safer solution.
Yeah, like the signalized intersection option, we didn't really talk about, there's a lot of weaving maneuvers. And with the increase in pavement, not only pedestrians more exposed, but also vehicle movements are more exposed to creating more conflict points, especially as someone trying to take a right off of the southern intersection to go, or excuse me, the central intersection to go like Sandy Hollow, and they have to merge over to go up to the daycare. They have to kind of get over kind of quickly. There's a lot of maneuvers that have to happen. Whereas that single lane roundabout's kind of limiting your roadway width, but also processing vehicles at a slower speed, but also keeping everything moving.
No, I'm in support of like looking at changing the infrastructure. Like I said, it's been the same forever, and Mystic has changed drastically, so it's time. So again, I appreciate it, and I'm just trying to prepare for the what ifs of people maybe wanting to change things, but I appreciate the concept thus far, and you know, public safety and, you know, enhancement and quality of life in the area is so vital. So it'll be interesting to see. So thanks again.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands, so I'm just going to finish up with my own final thoughts, is that I have gotten off of the southbound exit, went over the overpass, and somebody had come from the northbound ramp and went right through the stop sign and basically could have killed us. It was shocking and a little nerve-wracking. So with a roundabout there, something like that wouldn't just happen. Also, for people who live in the area, being on Sandy Hollow Road trying to get onto Allen Street is a nightmare, an absolute nightmare. I'm telling you, you could literally sit there for 10 minutes just waiting for a space to just try and turn onto Allen Street, especially if you're turning left to get on there from like the ambulance side, trying to turn left. It is just a nightmare because I've lived in the area for a long time, and I've sat there myself for probably almost 10 minutes. So I will tell you, we will go through the council, we'll get you answers from the councilors which way they would like to go. But I would like to say that I like that there's no traffic light. I like that it increases safety. And I also truly like that it can cut down on the wrong way driver because of just simply that lip. That is huge because especially in our area, we have seen you have seen the wrong way accidents on 95. I mean, our you know, emergency response people have seen these things, and I've heard about them, and hopefully this could help cut down. And I honestly hope you're going to Stonington down to the next exit as well and thinking about doing the same thing there. So, because that really backs up traffic on the 95 in the summertime. You think we're bad, next exit's even worse. So, we will go through everybody and just give a standing on if you would like to, you think we should go forward with this plan and bring it to the community. Is that what you're saying? It'll come to the community next?
It'll take us some time because we've got to develop the 30% design. This is just a sketch up on an aerial photo. So we've got some design work to do, and we want to make sure that the town is behind us before we put that effort into the design.
Understood.
So we'll do that. We'll come back out. We'll meet you with your town engineer, Public Works, Emergency Services again. We'll review the 30% design. If everyone's in favor at that point, we'd like to go out to a public involvement meeting. So it's going to take us some time to get there.
All right, well, you could go fast. Chief Richards, did you have something you wanted to add?
I think it's a great concept. I did not come into the meeting tonight with the question that I'm going to ask, but it's pretty evident to me that it's going to be a significant question for us. Are there any studies done for emergency services increase in response time? Because I can tell you, after everything I'm hearing tonight, our response time getting to the Stonington side is going to significantly increase.
I haven't heard any studies about an increase in response time, but the good news is I've never heard of a complaint about a delay in response because of the roundabout. And what we always hear and have heard across the country, crashes within the roundabout area itself have gone down significantly, lowering response need and lowering cost to the community.
Are you good with that?
No, yeah, I'm picturing in my mind, we come out of the firehouse, take a left, we hit the first
Want to
traffic.
grab the microphone?
I'm
Thank
just picturing in my head, we come out of our headquarters firehouse, we take the right, we hit the first traffic light, and then it's clear sailing all the way down to that northbound on-ramp for 95. It's not 10 miles an hour going through roundabouts, it's a straight shot. So I'm thinking, the speed of our apparatus from that traffic light to that entrance ramp is not 15 miles an hour. It's double that, if not higher. So that's I didn't come into this meeting thinking about that, but after listening, I'm saying to myself, wow, that's going to
You're going to slow down.
That's going to take us a significant more amount of time to get to that on-ramp to head to Stonington, where we're responding to 800 calls a year compared to what we are now. I'm not saying it, I can't tell you what it is. Minute, 2 minutes more, I'm not saying what, I don't know that.
Collision with the car at those intersections is reduced.
Right, no, I'm not saying that, that just popped in my mind, I'm saying, wow, if you're talking 10 and 15 miles an hour compared to 30 and 40, that's a significant increase in response time.
Thank you. Councilor Rusk.
I'm going to follow up with that. Is there space for cars to get out of the way in light of the fact that there's an ambulance and a fire department right there? Will there be room for cars to get out of the way within the roundabout?
This question has come up at several of the other designs we have done, and the response is there's not enough room for a car to pull right and the fire truck to go by. If we provided that much room between the roundabouts on the approaches, speeds will go up. Speeds go down because of the narrow lanes and the curbing on each side. So what we do is on the median island, which we call the splitter island on the left side, we provide a 4-inch curbing, not 6, it's 4. It's got a 45-degree angle on it, it's sloped, and the fire truck can ride up on that curbing if it needs to go by.
Since I have the mic, I'm just going to
Within the roundabout itself, the fire truck can run over the truck apron. So if the cars pull to the right, the fire truck can go over the truck apron and get through.
The truck apron has a lower vertical clearance, like 2 inches typically.
Chief, are you comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah, yes, I'm very familiar with the Salem roundabout, and I've had conversations with the fire department up there, and what he's saying is absolutely true. There's accommodations, but they did inform me that, it takes longer to get through that roundabout than if it's a straight shot with a fire apparatus.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to touch on what Councilor McBride said. This Midwest girl had never seen a roundabout until I moved out here in 1995. And then I went through North Stonington and was terrified of what I was going through. Subsequently, I've gone back to Wisconsin, and there's a plethora of roundabouts in Wisconsin now at every exit ramp, everywhere. So if you want to see them in action, Councilor McBride, take a trip to Wisconsin. They're all over. And the mayor brought up 117 and 184. And Scott, I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name, Scott.
Bushy.
Bushy, thank you. Mr. Bushy and I had a conversation before the meeting about that intersection because it is so difficult. So I know it's off topic, so thank you for allowing me the grace of that, but thank you for looking into that. Yield the floor.
Thank you. Town Manager?
I just wanted to add on to it. If I was going into the roundabout and saw an emergency vehicle, you're not going into the roundabout, you're just going to hold. So the few that are there are going to exit, and then you'll have a clear shot through.
May I comment on that?
Yeah.
I realize I yield the floor.
Go right ahead.
I guess my question, or my concern isn't for the one roundabout, it's for the two. Like, you get kind of into the first one, realize there's an ambulance behind you and trying to get out of the way. So that would be my one concern.
There's two options. We encourage people to continue through. So you're the lead vehicle, emergency service is behind you. You should just go right through. maintain your 15 to 20 miles an hour, get through the roundabouts, and then pull to the right, let them by. If somebody gets scared, they pull to the right, confused, the fire truck should be able to go by getting a couple wheels up onto the island on the left. The curbing's only gonna be 4 inches, it'll have a 45-degree angle on it, it's called a mountable granite curb, and that will accommodate the fire truck going by.
Thank you. We can also do educational videos and put them on the town's website and GMTV and,
The question you asked about emergency services and fire trucks getting through comes up quite often at most of the communities we've built roundabouts in. The good news is we've maintained contact with most of those communities, Public Works, emergency services, just to see if there's any issues, to try to learn, and it's never come up as a problem. All we hear is, thank you, right? We've improved the community, we've reduced crashes, it's better for pedestrians and cyclists, everybody loves the pedestrian infrastructure, the lower speeds, the better operation. It's always been a success.
okay, so we'll go through the council. And you're saying if we say yes now, this will then go to, you'll start working on designs and ready to make a presentation to the public, which will take some time, you're saying. But you need our direction. So you were looking for our direction.
And the reason is, we don't want to invest 6 months on a design if you're not interested. Because it's a lot of our time that we could be working on other things.
Right,
We
understood.
want to know that you guys feel at least you want to bring it to a community. We're not asking a yes or no here. We're just asking, do we think this is something that there's interest that we'd like to have a community meeting on?
Okay. Councilor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So we say yes to the concept of you going to review everything, and the public says we don't want it. Do you pause it?
No, we'll come back, we'll talk with your local leadership, and what we'll specifically do is look at the reasons the public objected. What was the concern? And we'll look to see, is there a validity to it, and is there any way we can address it? And we'll talk. If community says we don't want it because emergency services can't get through the roundabout, we know that's not the case. If the community says we don't want it because school buses can't get through the roundabout, we know that's not the case. If the community says you can't plow roundabouts, it's not gonna work, we know that's not the case. So we'll have those discussions and check the validity of the comments and try to work through it.
Okay, so what I'm technically hearing is public comes out and speaks and says they don't want it because of X, Y, and Z, but the DOT may go ahead and do it anyways.
We need municipal support.
But we also need public support.
Yeah.
We would come back to your elected officials and have a discussion.
As representative of your constituents, we would rely on you to kind of steer our design. Once we present the facts and that information and solicit feedback from the public, we would have a discussion.
But the examples I mentioned to you, they've come up at other community meetings where I've brought roundabouts, and I've heard school buses can't get through the roundabout, we don't want them in our community, get out of here. I've heard we can't plow roundabouts, it's not gonna work, it's stupid, get out of here. And we take those comments and look to see if there's any truth to them, validity. We look to see if there's accommodations we can make based on what community input is. We steer the design as best we can. And if we feel we're still on good ground, we talk with the elected officials and see if it's still a good design, do we want to move ahead?
Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there. So if the community says, oh, I'm okay with a couple, not 3, would you do another design?
We'll talk about why one of the roundabouts is not okay.
Okay, I'm yielding my time.
Thank you. Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other thing is that 10 years ago, we didn't have a lot of roundabouts, so that a lot of this criticism would be, nobody knew what the answers for it. But now, they're all around us now. I mean, an enormous number of people drive through the Salem one, and now there's going to be ones in Norwich and Guilford. And so we have lots of examples of positive experiences and can highlight, crash reductions and all that kind of stuff. So I think it will help if we run into sort of negative feedback, you can just say, look at all these towns, drive up there, take a look at it, and, you can make a better informed decision, so.
Yeah, to your point, we just recently gave a very similar presentation to a town in the northwest corner, and there's really not many roundabouts in that area. And part of that meeting, we had a discussion, we're like, go out for the weekend, go drive through Granby, go get some ice cream. And the tone and like the persona about the roundabouts changed because of that. And so for like your constituents that have concerns, like there's roundabouts and corridors in Rhode Island, like I would implore you to tell them to go out and experience that, if they have those means.
So I think the world has changed in the 10 years.
Yes.
From where
Lot
we were
of-
to, even like Councilor Rusk,
Lot of
not
regional-
having seen a roundabout at all to now there's roundabouts, all over our state, so.
DOT has an ICE policy now, which stands for Intersection Control Evaluation, and that's frequently steering any intersection modifications into roundabouts. But we also have a lot of municipalities and regional planning agencies just coming to us asking to build roundabouts.
Okay, good.
All right, so now we're going to get the standing of this council. All right, Councilor Merritt. Question basically on the floor is, would you think this is a good idea to go forward with the roundabouts, or would you say no?
I'm all in favor of it.
Okay. Councilor Bordelon.
I'm in favor of moving forward to get the public's input.
Councilor Pacino.
I am highly in favor.
Councilor Rusk.
I'm in favor.
Councilor Jones.
I'm in favor.
Councilor McBride.
In favor?
Councilor Parker.
In favor.
I am also in favor. You are unanimously in favor here. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have a recess, please?
Yes, it's 8:24. We're almost done, 2 hours in, so let's take a recess. We'll be gone for about 10 to 15 minutes. It is 8:24. Thank you. right. Okay, it's 8:43. We're back from recess. All right, up next, 2025-414-5, 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act Program. This is on page 57 of our packet. Counselor Jones, would you like to take that one?
2025-414, 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act Program. Motion to recommend a resolution that the town council hereby approves the proposals for Noank Baptist Church, Town of Groton Community Center, and Community of Hope for the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jones, seconded by Rusk. Good evening.
Good evening. John Reiner, Director of Planning and Development. We've gone over this a number of times. Again, this is a pass-through program that we just help administer and kind of bring some folks in and help find some eligibility. Tonight, we had a public hearing last week, no comments, and looking to move this forward. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. All right, I'm not seeing any hands, so we'll take a vote. On 2025-414-5, 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act Program. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, that passes 8-0. Up next, 2025-521-1, Pleasant Valley Update and Scheduled Public Hearing. This is on page 58 of our packet. Counselor Rusk, would you like to take that one?
Yes. Item 2025-521, Pleasant Valley Update and Schedule Public Hearing. Motion to recommend a resolution to schedule a public hearing for July 1, 2025 to receive community input regarding the sale of the former Pleasant Valley School. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Russ, seconded by Pacino. You want to give us a little synopsis on that?
Yeah, sure. So thanks again for having us. Again, John Reiner with me tonight. Yeah, I think it's on, right? All right, so we're just going to go through a quick presentation tonight to do a little bit of a check-in on the disposition process, where we are now. We also, definitely got some feedback at the public hearing last week, so we want to address some of the comments that were brought up. Go over briefly our Greater Groton page and what people can find there and why. Again, something new that we've done, and then kind of the next steps on where we're going in this process.
Great, thank you. So everyone's familiar with this graphic by now. We won't spend time here, but we just wanted to start with this depiction of the overall process. And we're on that step 11 with the hearing that we recently had. But we're going to zoom in. Next slide, please. So with this graphic, it's not new information, it's just packaged in a slightly different way and zoomed in a little bit to help answer some of the questions that we heard throughout the public hearing. And really, in general, what we heard comes down to process. So this graphic captures some of the main questions, such as who's involved when, what info is available when and why, in addressing the balance that the town council is aiming to strike with the proposed uses for this concept. We'll walk through each column with you and again, kind of answer those overarching themes that we heard throughout the hearing. And overall, this new policy really aims to ensure that people aren't involved only at the end. So we really want to reiterate the context of what happens when and why. So this hearing was in the middle. We want to go over what information would be available at that point versus maybe the end once a decision's been made. You'll see across the top, we're going to cover essentially how we identified the preferred public benefits, how we got into the preferred project concept and development team, and then what comes next, such as terms of that purchase and sale agreement, and moving towards project concept design and approvals. And then throughout the graphic, you'll see a lot of different colors. Basically, pink is every time there is a public hearing or a focused community input opportunity. Green is every time a commission or committee comprised of different town representatives is involved. And blue is every time our elected town councils are involved. Additionally, that the public may speak at open comment periods as available.
And some of this is obviously going to not be new information for you, but what we saw from the public hearing is that there's a lot of people that are now paying attention to this after the public hearing. And, often with a lot of these projects, once things start becoming a little bit more real, that's when people start getting involved and, okay, something is really happening here, so.
Yeah, that's a great point. So essentially it's a refresher and just pointing folks to where these resources are online as well. So for that first column, everyone's familiar with our TOPE committee, and that essentially is pulled together to deem if the property is excess. This is comprised of members of our Conservation Commission, our Economic Development Commission, and applicable town departments that may have a relationship with the property. Then we move into a public hearing for town council to receive public input, and then the town council gets to work on identifying the public benefit preferences that should be within that RFP, and then that RFP is issued. Next slide, please. All right, so starting with that TOPE, or the Town-Owned Property Evaluation Committee, their objectives are, again, to review that property. They receive input from town departments to identify things like, is it a current liability? Are there existing municipal uses for that property, or could it be better serve the town by repurposing it? You can see the list of folks who participated in this one, from staff to our Conservation Commission to our Economic Development Commission. And then after the TOPE recommendation, there's also a public hearing there. So this slide basically jumps into the RFP. So after that hearing, the town council utilizes the previous steps to start identifying the public benefit preferences for the RFP. So it's important to note that the top section is essentially town policy of what they want to see for an excess property, regardless of the property. So this is, I've highlighted one of the main ones, which is grow the town's grant list. Then moving on to the public benefits that the council identified specifically for the Pleasant Valley property, I've highlighted here, including housing and also the preservation or creation of some public space or recreation that will be publicly accessible. So again, as taking the feedback from the previous steps, the council identified essentially a balance here between the need between housing and public space, as well as ways that the property could contribute to the tax roll. And we did hear some support as well throughout the hearing about the much needed housing.
And again, we've been hearing a lot of these themes for a number of years when it comes to, this section of town, whether it's for the needed housing as well as for the recreation space. One of the other themes that we heard at the public hearing was a little bit about, why are we seeing more development on the west side of town versus the east side of town? And something I wanted to kind of go over briefly, for the council and also for the public is when we look at different areas of town, so this is our zoning map. This is kind of what we as planners look at a lot. And we don't just zone areas and say, hey, let's try to spur development there. What we look at before we zone is looking at the infrastructure that's there. So, when I look at the western part of town, that's where the majority of our commercial areas are. That's where historically we've had a lot of our employment centers. That's where we have water. That's where we have sewer. That's where we have limited access highways, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of jobs, a lot of employment. And so that's why we're seeing a lot of that growth and density there. Next slide for me. So here, sorry, as we zoom into that, you can really see, blowing that area up, that red zone, which is our commercial zone, and then going up the Route 12 corridor, some of that commercial zone. And, the Pleasant Valley site is that brown piece. Let's see if this doesn't show up on there. The RM, the residential multi-unit zone, allows for that multifamily development. Again, this is the area of town, employment centers, and, historically where we've had that infrastructure for this. If people in the public are interested in this and want to get involved in how these decisions are made, sorry, I got to put at least one plug in for Groton 2035, our plan of conservation and development. That's something we're doing right now. That will direct growth and development in all areas of town, looking at what we're doing now and in the future. So this next step, as we looked at, Corinne kind of walked us through the TOPE process and how that went. As we looked at the Property Sale Review Committee of the PSRC, that was also a committee I'll get into in a minute of who it was comprised of, but council members, RTM, EDC, town manager, staff, and that looked at the process. At that point when the PSRC met, we had received the proposals from developers and had to kind of bring that down, looking at the goals and standards that the town council set that we saw in those other slides. The PSRC went through that process, brought it down to preferred developers, and made a recommendation to the council. The council then reviewed that, decided to move ahead with a recommendation. And last week, we had our first public hearing on that. And, you know, we had some very conceptual information available. And then there's also some information that we're not necessarily sharing publicly yet that's still under negotiation. So, you know, again, very high-level stuff. And then moving forward, we're actually going to have another public hearing because we didn't sign the property properly, which is why we're going to do the one on July 1st. And then from there, the town council will select a public, actually make the decision to select the preferred developer and send that over to the RTM. So again, who are those participants? We heard questions about who's making these decisions. So that PSRC process, again, council members, RTM members, EDC, and some staff members. And again, the process that the PSRC went through, if people want to do a deeper dive into this, all these meetings were for council, as we presented this before, recorded, they're out, they're living on the web. But we went through and did that preliminary scoring. We looked and came up with that kind of, you know, development concept, which at this point is still a very high-level concept. There's not a lot of details beyond the plans that we've seen so far. They haven't engineered the site, they haven't designed it. That's things that happen after we actually have a signed purchase and sales agreement later on in the process. Again, the way that we looked at this at the PSRC, again, I'm not going to go through all these, but looking at the project approach, the qualifications of the teams, the timelines, and those public benefits that the council had outlined based on previous feedback, previous public hearings on this site, and really kind of looking at those, you know, those town goals and preferred public benefits of housing and recreation space. Those were key components that we've been identifying throughout the RFP process and making sure that developers knew that were things that we were looking for. What are the council's next steps, or the council steps once they receive that PSRC recommendation? They then voted to move forward with the Spinnaker Real Estate Partners as the preferred developer. The staff launched that Greater Groton webpage. We hosted that presentation from Spinnaker to introduce them to the public. That was back maybe about a month ago. And again, at that meeting, there was very limited information that we have at this point just because of where we are in the game. We've picked a development partner, and they have a concept plan. Again, that's very high level, and we're looking at their qualifications and the overall feasibility of them pulling this project off. And we've also heard questions about, you know, we want to know more information. What's the purchase price? What's the tax abatement? What's the affordability component? And how's that park and playground area going to be designed? Those are all items that are still up for negotiation that you get to work with the developer and are going to happen in executive session. And there will be a time for public comment on those later before you officially approve that type of document. And again, we're going to hold another public hearing on July 1.
All right, so in addition to what John mentioned, staff launched a Greater Groton page for Pleasant Valley to provide the available information to the public to then inform the public hearing. So we encourage everyone to go there if you haven't seen it yet, and this goes over really the whole picture. So we wanted to make sure it wasn't just, okay, here's the concept tonight. We wanted to make sure it touched on the entire disposition process background. There's a timeline that you can follow and see what's happened and what comes next. It also talks about how the project meets the town's goals as identified in that request for proposals document. There's also a survey on if it's helpful to you or feedback for that site for future projects. Our goal there is for it to be a one-stop shop of information, and we'll continue to update that, but that helps everyone know they can find everything they need to know in one spot. Thank you. All right, so moving on to the next stage, which basically, John's covered everything we've done up until this point. And now if the council decides to select Spinnaker as that preferred project concept and development team, basically right now they're looking at the concept and picking a team to then work through the actual design process with. So we move into that next column. John had mentioned this is where you start digging into those final terms, purchase price, tax abatement, and affordable housing component. You review those. That final draft draft is presented to you publicly, so again, folks get to see those. And then we would move into that final purchase and sale agreement, and that's really what guides the project through completion. I think sometimes, folks might get nervous that everything that was agreed to might not happen, and that's what this document is. That's where it lives, and that's what guides the process from then on. Next slide, please. And in that final column with project concept design and approvals, once that final negotiation is set, that's where the actual technical due diligence starts, where they're actually designing the project, engineering it, and going all the way through permitting. So this part, and this is on the Greater Groton page as well, includes a community engagement element to help design the park, which was proposed by Spinnaker. So that is also helpful for folks who were concerned or wanted to have input on what that park space looks like for the public use. Then that final project design is presented to town council, and then the project moves through planning and zoning in that entire process as well. The development team does not have the opportunity to purchase this property from the town until after the PZC review, and if there are substantial changes, the town council actually gets to see it again to make sure that those substantial changes match with the purchase and sale agreement.
And then, so what are our next steps? Again, tonight we are looking to have you set an additional public hearing for July 1, and then we can also talk about having the Spinnaker team to have a follow-up presentation prior to making that final decision on the preferred developer concept. We're actually trying to target maybe doing something prior to the council meeting on July 1st and doing a little bit of a presentation and question and answer session that evening. Happy to answer any questions at this point in time.
Councilor Rusk?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to go a little bit off topic, but I promise you it pertains to this. So when we had people come and speak the other night, what I heard over and over is growth and development is great, but it's always on the west side. Growth and development is great, but we don't have any parks. Growth and development is great, but we don't have any parks that are safe. We don't have parks that kids can run around. We have tiny little parks, little pocket parks. Nobody even knows where they are, or they're owned by the military. So I'm all for development, and I truly believe that when we get to a tipping point, housing prices are going to start coming down because we're going to have enough housing. I have a child who just bought a house, not in Groton, because there were no houses in Groton. There was one, and they got outbid. But they wanted to stay in Groton, and that didn't happen. I am not going to be okay with this project until we identify another space that is large, that can be used for parks. Because the little parklet that's part of this, I get that that's there and that's lovely, but it's not a big space. And I've been talking to Mr. Burt, and I've been talking to Chair Washington of the Board of Ed to try to identify some space over there. And I really think this has to go hand in hand. And we are losing trust of people in our community because we haven't heard this. And we've identified this as something that we want to work on as a council. It's been one of our priorities, and it hasn't happened yet. So I think this needs to take top center stage in order for this to move forward, in order for the public to have trust in this process. Because again, we need housing, but it can't all be in D4. And if we're putting more housing in D4, we need space for all of those children, whether they live in D4 now or whether they're going to move into D4, to move around, because every child deserves that in their neighborhood. And we've taken away so many schools, especially in that neighborhood. And as somebody who had their children's schools taken away as well, I understand that. But thankfully, I have other options in my neighborhood. I appreciate the fact that we're keeping trees. I appreciate the fact that there's a playground there, but, and I appreciate the fact that there's housing. Like, I think that those are all very, very important things, and I like this project overall. But we as a town need to do better before this is finalized. That's all I have to say.
Do you have a response?
Sure. I mean, I think One, the parklet or whatever the park is going to be on the site, is that going to alleviate all of our problems? No. Is it going to help? Certainly. I think the developer is also committed on this site looking at some walking paths through the open space, the tree forested area behind. And, we've kind of been talking for a while about, let's try to identify some other properties within this area that we could look to either if we own as a town some of those properties and improve them. There will be some funding that comes to the town from the sale of this. Could we direct some of that funding towards the improvement of other areas in this area to help build that out as a park? Certainly. Or maybe we have to do a little bit more than that. One of the things that when we look at the land that has water, sewer, great access to roadways, some of that we don't want to necessarily just make it a park. That's great area for development, so we don't have to then extend water lines and sewer lines. But if there's areas close to that are still walkable within that area, those are some of the pieces that we certainly want to target for, future parkland or recreation resources. And, it's unfortunate that historically, as we looked at this area, this is where all the development was always envisioned for a long time in our plan of conservation and development. So these have been long-range plans that have been out there. But, like you said, I think some of these smaller areas that used to be some of those neighborhood playgrounds have come offline. Triton Square, the Sealy School is one. And, this area is still open, but it's not really maintained because it's not that school ground anymore. I think it's up to all of us to start to identify some of those other areas to say, hey, how can we find something else to change the balance on that a little bit? One of the other things, someone had asked me about, what's the impact of a lot of these units and what types of units? Most of what we're seeing, yesterday we walked through Triton Square. It's studios, it's ones, and it's a few two-bedroom units. We're not going to see a lot of families within those types of developments. Do we think that we're going to see some shifting around of people within our community, of some of our aging population maybe moving into some of these types of developments, freeing up their single-family houses in other areas? Certainly, and I think that's going to have a positive impact on, just our overall community development as well.
And if I could add to that, if we could pull the slide, Manager Burt, just for the, thank you. Back to the RFP, I think it's a bigger question of process as well, because we issued the RFP based on town council direction, which included housing. So if that's off the table, or you want the project on hold until additional parcels are secured, I think that's kind of a bigger question of managing this RFP versus bringing in some additional steps, or what the RFP becomes at that point.
I don't know what happened to the time. Did you reset the time?
For what?
Did she run out of time, or?
She had 10 seconds left.
Oh, okay, I'll answer.
Councilor Bordelon.
Thanks. For me, it's, the last time the preferred developer was here, it was just a presentation. We weren't allowed to ask clarifying questions to the developer, which I had some clarifying questions, not more dialogue, but clarifying questions. So that was a little frustrating. So a lot of people I spoke to were concerned that we're having public comment and councilors weren't able to publicly ask the questions that we could publicly. Whatever was done in executive session, that's executive session. But like, how many stories do you propose? Or what do you envision for this? Simple, low-level questions, which we have done in the past. So that was a little, I speak for myself. When we say the council agreed to this, it's a consensus of the council. Not everyone necessarily is in agreement with every piece of it, but the majority of the council was. But with that, I can respect what Councilor Rusk is saying, and I have heard as well. I mean, as a person who used to live in that area in military housing, we lost Sealy, and Mary Morrison's parks are not really being upkept either, even though that school's not handed back over to the town. That's another school right there on Tollgate that's in that same district. Just because all the economic development's in that district doesn't mean that it needs to all be overdeveloped, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. But we have these buildings, and we do something with them. So yes, let's get them back on the tax rolls. But what that envisions, I don't know. I will tell you this. My concern is we didn't pass funding fully in the requested amount that the school asked. Well, by increasing our tax base and increasing housing, we have to prepare for some, yes, these might be studios and one bedrooms, but if people shift out of the other ones, we need to start preparing that our schools will possibly increase as well. So those are other things that we need to talk about. But yes, parks are a concern on that side of town. And I worry about our environment and our air quality as we increase all the cars on that side. I can agree, the infrastructure's there. Now, some people weren't here, some counselors may have been, but we have the No Ink Community Gardens, which had plumbing and structure, and it's still sitting. So when people are, I have to say that, I'm not saying I wasn't for having that. I love green space, but when people are speaking up about their concerns, that's one of the things that they're talking about. That's a great example of a place that had plumbing, had traffic, had buses, had cars coming every day. And now we haven't even started doing anything. It's just still sitting. Also concerned because Groton Heights is still sitting. So again, I have concerns about our momentum and our plan and our vision as a whole, and have for quite some time. So what is the plan? And, you know, as a person that was part of the Property Use Committee, and then it turned to this committee, it got watered down, in my opinion, again, on the consensus of the council, not my vote. I think the higher level discussions that we had in our group would have weeded out some of this. And my last thing is, why are we having another public comment?
Your response?
So why are we having another public hearing?
Public hearing, sorry.
So although we had advertised in the past with a sign on the property showing and indicating the public hearing, so technically we met the state requirement, out of an abundance of caution, we're doing it again, just because the last public hearing, there wasn't a sign out on the property indicating that there was a public hearing on this property, even though we met the letter of the law 2 public hearings ago when we did it. Out of an abundance of caution, we'll do it again so people are aware, and we want to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible through the process.
All right, I'll wait till my next turn. Thank you.
Thank you. I have just just to see how this process is going. Councilor Rusk, are you saying that you're not going to go forward on this project?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying while we are doing this, we need to very quickly identify a space that is sizable.
Thank you. I'd also like to notate that it has just been brought up that there was this other committee that looked over how this process should have been, and they came up with an alternate process. And I will say that there were things in there that were just that could not happen. There were illegal processes that could not take place. So the process that's in place is what this council had passed. It is the will of this council. And also in Robert's rules, you should not be speaking negatively about decisions that have already been decided. That is in Robert's rules. It also, and I would just like to thank you for putting up that this council has in their parks. And it was part of the RFP process. It was basically a requirement in there to say, you will do a park there or in an adjacent area. The housing was something that this council had, as a consensus, had agreed upon. And growing the grand list with these schools has been what it was always about from the moment that these all came forward. And when the whole whatever the plan was, what was it, 2020 plan? Mm-hmm. When the whole plan came together, that was the founding people that did all of the work before probably any of us, was always to grow the grand list. And honestly, they said, and from what I'm understanding, they said, you should not be turned into parks. They said it should be the grand list, and that's what they sold the public. And the public was also on board with that. So that's what I remember. And from well before any of us. So the parks are very important that side of town. What this is about, what the topic on the floor is about, a public hearing on July 1st. Can you tell me more about what your plan is for that night?
Yeah, sure. So at the regular council meeting at 6:30, we'll have a public hearing, again, receive comments back from people about, again, the information that we've laid out tonight is the majority of what's out there. Are there maybe some more specifics? So on, I think around 5:30, we're still trying to wrap up some of the details. We'll hold a little bit of a open house type presentation where we go over some of this stuff again publicly, high level. We'll have Will Cannon come, give a little bit of basically the presentation that he gave to the council that night, 3 or so weeks ago. and talk about the project very high level conceptually. We'll have some time for a Q&A at that. You know, we just want to set some ground rules that night with people of, we're talking about Pleasant Valley, we're not talking about other schools, we're not going to get into the process, and we want to keep things very cordial and comment about where the process is and how we got here. So that's kind of what we're looking to do. And if people have questions about the stories of the building, the height, the design, that's great. We can get into that again from a very conceptual level, because some of those things might change a little bit through the design process. And we want people to know that we don't have specific designs yet for the playground area. Again, that's why, as we looked at, which slide was it? You know, sorry, I skipped over it. That last slide there, at the end, when they're doing that technical due diligence and actually designing the site, we had asked that there'd be a community engagement portion there to help get feedback from the community around there about what do you need in the park? What do you want? How can we design this best to fit your needs? That's something that Spinnaker is committed to doing, and we can, you know, the council can hold the feet to the fire on that one. So that's really what we want to do on July 1st. Sorry.
That's okay. And to clarify, did you say at 5:30 or 6:30?
We want to do that pre-council meeting so that we can, you know, take some time. And, you know, one of the negative things about public hearings is often it's a little bit of a one-way conversation. We want to be able to have a little bit more of a question and answer as opposed to your traditional public hearing format. That's what's driven us a lot to do our community conversations that we've been doing, to try to get questions answered by the public prior to getting to the point of a public hearing. You know, we're trying to hit that with a lot of different topics.
Okay. Much appreciated. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and you know, one last thing, those are not things that are required as part of the process. We're trying to go above and beyond to be as transparent as possible through this and get people's fears kind of, you know, we want to make sure people know we are hearing you loud and clear. We want to address the parks, see what we can do on this site, and then also see what we can do off-site.
I agree. Parks on that side of the town have been a discussion, and it is one of the goals of this council. It has gone to Parks and Rec. We have put it in our RFP process, and I can't state it enough that it is a concern of this council. We've made it one of our goals. So it's on our to-do list, and it's in our packet on a town council meeting. You can see that at the end of our packet. All right, thank you. Council Berlin.
I guess for me, I was told, I thought today was the day we could ask the questions, but obviously we don't have, when I asked at the last presentation, they were said, well, the 10th, we would be able to. So again, I think the community relies on us as the council to be able to kind of ask some of those questions, not the ones from executive session, but publicly to kind of, you know, narrow down a little bit, and we haven't been able to do that publicly yet. And that's what they have been asking. And we've done that in the past, so. But again, tonight, we're not able to really do that. So when's the first chance that the council will publicly be able to ask questions regarding?
Councilor Berline, can I correct you? You can ask questions tonight if you would like.
The developer's not here. They don't know.
They're here.
But they don't know what the developers.
Well, what kind of question do you have?
Whatever questions based on the, you know, like that's the type of Q&A that we've had in the past, is where the developer presented, and we know nothing is final as a council, right? Some things are gonna be an executive session, but we were able to have a dialogue with the developer and ask certain questions about what are you thinking for height, what do you envision for green things, this. We don't have the developer here tonight, so we just watched a presentation. Can I finish, please?
Well, I'm responding to you. No, your questions should be directed at me.
Not you.
Yes.
I'm speaking in
When
general.
you speak, everything you say should be directed at me.
I'm speaking broadly, so yes, I'm speaking.
And I'm responding, saying, those are all in his presentation, but what kind of questions do you have that were not in executive session that you would like to ask?
We don't have the presentation, I was told the 10th, and we don't have the developer here to ask.
They're going to be here on the 1st, and
So
the community can
I
ask
just was-
questions.
That's great, but I think the community has asked so that they feel the council should do their due diligence, and so again, I thought it was tonight that we were going to ask the questions of the developer, but now it's the 1st, so that's fine, as long as that's going to happen. But again, the community draws a lot of their feedback by us drawing out some questions as well, and so having that opportunity and that dialogue is very critical. And that platform has changed. You know, some may say for the good or the worse or for the better. For me, I speak for myself, I think it's for the work. I don't agree with the new process. I think that part of the old process was better. We did it before, and it was nice to be able to do that and then have our public hearing after that. So again, we can ask an
Point of
executive
information.
session.
Your question?
My question is, I understand, through the mayor, I understand that you have questions, Council Borderline. I would suggest maybe give our town staff the opportunity to try to answer your questions at this moment. If they can't, they can't, but
Councilor
give them
Porcino,
the
that's not,
opportunity. That's all,
your-
that was
your
my
question.
question, was can we give them the opportunity?
We can give the opportunity of town staff to answer questions, yes.
I would like to speak to the developer, an open dialogue, so that's not tonight, but, so that might happen on the 1st, or when will that happen?
If the council would like to have him here on the 1st at the council meeting to also answer some questions, we can certainly look at putting that on an agenda. Historically, a lot of times when the council has had questions, it's actually all been an executive session. That's how we've always done this. This is a new process. This is the first time we're doing it this way. Sometimes when we'd be getting into questions more about design and other things, they were either an executive session, or sometimes they were after we already had a signed purchase and sales agreement, option agreement. So again, this is a new process. We're doing it the best we can according to the process that we have, and trying to actually give more information up front than we historically have.
And additionally, Spinnaker's presentation wasn't required by the policy. We just set that up just so that it could be basically an introduction from the concept, of the concept to the public. The council had that information, and it wasn't intended that there would never be questions. It was essentially just, here's your introduction, and we'll move into questions, negotiation, and purchase and sale afterwards, which is part of kind of that background in the graphic of how many steps are still to come where that process can take place.
And again, for me, and I speak solely for myself, which I have a right to my opinion, I don't necessarily love our process. I think there's things that could have went in there. I've seen other towns' processes, and for me, it just doesn't sit well, and that's just my opinion. Again, it's a consensus of the council. It's not everybody. I just think that the way it's being laid out is not as transparent in my view.
Point of order.
Of the way that I feel it.
Point of
Point of
order.
order?
Council Borderline is speaking negatively about the process, and per Robert's rules, you cannot speak negatively about a process.
You are correct. It has already been decided. Cannot speak negatively about it.
You can speak to what things you'd like to see, because we're talking about suggestions, so as it was stated, like what.
You spoke negatively about it.
I can say, I have a right to say that I don't necessarily agree with this process. I have an opposition of it. That's my right to say.
Maybe we should start bringing out Robert's rules all the time. So I am saying that you do not have the right to speak negatively of items that have already been decided. The process has already been decided.
I'm speaking about this process because it's not really, like she said, that this wasn't something that was part of the process, it was something that they threw in.
They added additional.
Right, so I'm speaking about
For more
that, so that wasn't
transparency.
decided.
For more transparency, yes.
Right, but that wasn't decided.
So
that's
you
what I'm
want
speaking.
less transparency?
I was asking that we should have had a chance to
You want them to
speak.
share less with the public?
I asked that I would like to be able to ask questions at that point. So it wasn't a decided process that I'm speaking negatively about, or in general. I'm saying that
You
process.
did speak negatively.
No comment on that night is.
Council Bordelon, my ruling is that you spoke negatively, and please
Sure.
refrain from doing so.
I don't have the votes anyway, so then I could say boo and it's wrong. But anyway.
Point of order.
Your point of order.
It's just not necessary. I'm speaking, please.
Continue with your point of order.
My point of order is that Councilor Bordelon is being disruptive right now by saying that she could say boo and get whatever the rest of that comment was. Because at this point, if you could just say, if she could, sorry, I'll address it to you. She could just make her point. We could move on rather than talking about other counselors.
I agree.
Point of order.
Your point of order.
I never spoke about other counselors. So I didn't say anything about other counselors. I was speaking about the process. Again, for me, I think it should have been, I would, presentation with a developer here. For me, I feel like it's a waste of time not to be able to ask the questions at that time and to hold comments on that process. Just didn't seem productive for me. The developer was here, couple, low level.
Your time has expired. Thank you. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. Just a question on timing, and I sort of agree with Councilor Rusk that I think we should pursue that, pursue somehow adding a park into that area. I don't want to go into the details of what's been discussed, but she worded it perfectly. I think we should pursue that as well as this project at the same time. With that being said, though, what's the timing of this after July 1st? Because what I'm trying to find out is how much time does this take to go through for the purchase and sale to move things forward? And does that give us enough time to pursue looking at other areas where we can add an additional park? We're trying to think if we can pursue both at the same time, as Councilor Rusk indicated.
Yeah, so, I think Corinne and I can kind of tag team this one a little bit. It's going to take, so after the July 1st public hearing, the next COW, you would make a decision if you want this to be the preferred developer. That would then get voted on at the August Town Council meeting. We would then refer this to the RTM just for their final review. Then at that time, in between now and then, we have some general direction from the council on some of the terms, the things we want to start negotiating. We might also try to get an executive session meeting in there with the developer to have some questions, kind of work through some of these items. We're probably looking at a purchase and sales option agreement sometime September, October, of getting something like that finalized before the council. At that point in time, then they start doing their technical due diligence. It's going to take them 9 to 12 months to design this project. My rough estimate, if you wanted, hey, when's this going to be done? We're looking 2029, 2030. That's when, if everything goes swimmingly. So we have some time, 9 to 12 months to design it. Then they come back to the council. All right, here's our final design. Do you like this? Is this consistent with what we had proposed? That, take a month. Then they'll apply to planning and zoning. That's probably going to be, a 6+ or minus month process. They might need approvals from the State Traffic Commission. Again, we're looking another 3 months from there. If they get through all that process, they would then get all their approvals in place. We'd probably have them close and purchase the property around that time, or they might say, we actually need to now design the buildings with our architect, which could take another 6+ months. Then they'll apply for a building permit. Then at that point in time, they would certainly purchase the property, and then we see construction happening depending on what time of year it is. If it's in the fall, maybe they'd hold off. If it's in the spring, then they'd probably start.
Okay, thank you for that.
So we have some time.
Sounds like there's sufficient time. So I guess through the mayor to Town Manager Burt, if this, I'm speaking for myself, so what if this council wanted to desire to move forward with some objective of, however you want to word it, but somehow moving forward with providing a park for that area? What would the council do in order to?
Well, that's already one of the goals that I'm working on it. We're going to have talk about District 4 parks upcoming in the next couple of cows.
Okay, so it is a process.
I'm actively working on things.
Okay, thank you. Almost up.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands. So I guess we're going to take a vote on 2025-521-1, Pleasant Valley update, and schedule a public hearing, which you have noted would be on July 1st, and public would be open beginning at 5:30. I'm just adding that as a little extra.
I just want to add, councilors are certainly able to attend the 5:30 and ask questions too.
All right, thank you. I think it might be wise, and I'm just saying this publicly, is that maybe the developer also be available for the council as well during our meeting.
Oh, definitely.
Thank you. All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. All right. Up next, 2025-266-3. The Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority Partnership. This is begins on page 59 of our packet. Motion is on page 60. Councilor Pacino, would you like to take that one?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Item number 2025-266, Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority Partnership. I motion to recommend a resolution approving the town of Groton to join the authority as a member municipality and authorize the town manager to execute all acceptable documents to opt into the CTMRDA program.
You so move. Second, moved by Pacino, seconded by Jones. Okay, do you have a presentation for us?
We do.
Wonderful.
It'll be very brief. Excellent. No, it's not. So good. All right, excellent. Okay, so again, last week we had a public hearing on this matter as well. So again, a lot of this is information you've already seen, but we also received some public comment that night, so we want to address a number of those items. And again, this is, the town is not giving up any of its authority, autonomy, or anything else partnering with the Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority. This is something that really, at the end of the day, they look at giving us technical assistance, and they allow municipalities to opt in as a partner for this. It gives us technical assistance and access to state capital funds. It's something that we can be a part of, or we can decide to not be a part of. There's nothing that's being pushed on us, and again, we're not giving up any of our local zoning or other type of controls as part of this. A number of communities have already signed up and gone through this process. They're working on those next steps. And again, the town has the opportunity to partner, become an approved community, and take advantage of the resources and the funding that they provide to focus on revitalizing our downtown area. This is really focused on downtowns, and I think somebody had asked a question, about transit hubs. Next slide. Again, I can't state this enough. They do not usurp local control, but work with us to provide professional services and access to state funding for projects that support the activation of downtowns through housing and transit-oriented development. This is something that is an easy opportunity for us. We've put in good zoning downtown, we've put in the TIF district, and we haven't seen the redevelopment that we want to see down there, the mixed-use, walkable villages that we've been talking about for years. This is another way to help incentivize that and get some of the infrastructure in place.
Additionally, we wanted to note that staff's working with our attorney team to review all the Connecticut MRDA materials and looking at the partnership overall, and they don't have any concerns about the opportunity for the town or any question about control or maintaining our control while joining the partnership.
Again, I think we showed you all this slide last time. This is our downtown, the mixed-use town center zoning district. This is also our tax increment financing district. I think this whole area is also in a state enterprise zone from a taxing perspective. So, again, we try to set the stage and set the plate as much as we can to incentivize redevelopment in this area. And this is just another one of those tools. Next steps, so if you want to consider opting into this to help, really spearhead that downtown activation, we would do that. Did I skip ahead? Give me a second. Slides there. Can you try to advance to the next one? There we go. All right. The council held that public hearing on June 3rd, and then the next steps would include approval, adopting a resolution, and entering into an MOU with Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority. Happy to answer any other questions. Again, a number of these items we've gone over before, but again, happy to answer anybody's questions.
Okay. Counselor Borland.
Thanks. What was the name of the presenter that came last time and presented this?
So David Corus from the Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority. He's the executive director.
He also was, okay. Yeah, Mr. Corse. Okay, so he also was with the Mystic Oral School as well, one of the voting members on that.
So he came into the process of he worked for Connecticut DECD, and he came into the process of that late in the process. I think he actually might have only attended the last meeting of the selection committee group on that, yeah.
Yeah, I thought the name. He also was part of Port Authority as well. I mean.
Yeah, he has a very impressive resume in the things that he's done in his career.
I guess for me, I think we need more. I'm surprised the attorneys are not here to talk about what this means legally for us joining into this, because when you read all this print here, I mean, section 8-169 II. Can you speak to that?
What page are you on?
Page 65. Can you explain how that ties into our agreement and what that means for us? Because for me, it's not just that it sounds good and what it will do, it's like, what is in this document that's gonna hold us, like, unfortunately, I guess I can speak a little negatively about this because it's not an approved thing, right? Some state things haven't come to fruition and haven't worked out well or have collapsed, and, is this gonna be another, I don't know. I don't know much about it. Is there any that officially have started?
No, this is a new program that they've just started. So which particular section were you referring to that you had a question?
Page 65, section 8-169 II.
Okay, that's how the board is established. Was there a particular question you had about that?
On that whole section right up to B, right, again, I feel we're making decisions tonight on something, and I don't have an attorney here that, the town, to, just advise us on some of these questions, partnerships, quasi-municipalities, how this is gonna work. I mean, there's a lot embedded in this document to go through.
It's up to the council, though. We do this kind of thing often, and we've never had an attorney for this type of thing. That's just the law. It's not something we're signing. We're not bound to anything. It's just to allow us to try to seek money. So to me, this is a no-brainer.
All this does is allows us to become eligible for state technical assistance that they would have to help us review our zoning and look at plans to help revitalize the downtown, and then making us and developers eligible for part of that $60 million of state bond funding. That's it. There's no other, our hands are not tied to anything. I mean, now granted, if we get a grant from them for part of infrastructure, then yeah, they're gonna make sure that we actually build what we say we're gonna build. But to become eligible for this, I mean, there's other things that we're a part of. I don't think that, we're not necessarily proud that we're a distressed community, but we like the funding that comes along with that. This is something that only municipalities that opt into this are able to get this. And only some municipalities are eligible if you're around what they're looking at as essentially transit hubs, which are areas where there could be a train station or bus rapid transit, which the state has a plan looking far down the line for maybe having a train stop somewhere in Groton, and also for these mixed-use town centers, which I think most of the council members have spoke of in support of. So it makes us eligible for those grants with essentially, there's no downside to it.
Yeah, the other thing is when I asked about affordable housing, it wasn't really a part of the plan, which I found to be a little bit, tough for me to digest, because a lot of the stuff we're building is really not affordable housing. I guess for me, what's the benefit to the state then?
Helping to revitalize communities like us that are huge employment centers that are having trouble sparking development. I mean, why do we have a state office of economic and community development? It's to help meet the goals of growth and development in the state, and that's why the state adopted this program. If we don't have requirement for affordable housing, we don't have that in our zoning right now. That's not the state. We have 23% of our year-round housing stock is affordable. We're not subject to 830G like the majority of the municipalities in Connecticut are. So our zoning right now doesn't address affordable housing because according to a lot of the state guidelines, we are doing better than the most. It doesn't mean we shouldn't do more. We certainly can. And those are things that, as time goes on, and that might actually be a recommendation of the state when they look at our zoning to say, hey, you probably should put some affordable housing requirements in there. We haven't gotten to that point yet.
And then the other thing is, well, I mean, that whole affordable housing thing, I mean, they count military housing, and not everyone has that. I think I personally think the algorithm is off, but that's just me, just based on it. But my concerns are, you know, I don't know, it just, I don't know, I'll save my turn to see what other people have to say. I mean, what's going to change? We already are an enterprise zone, we're already a TIF district, and somehow we're not attracting folks. So what's going to make this better? Because like, why are we not attracting? Why are we not, a lot of it, is this going to change? That's one question. My other question is, like Thames Street in the city of Groton. One of the concerns is it's owned by people. You can't make people develop if they don't want to. So is that going to change anything for us? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, if private owners don't develop the property, we could bring all the bonds we want. Is that going to help that?
So this is not going to apply to Thames Street in the city of Groton. I
No,
want to be
no, I
very
didn't
clear
say
on that. Well, that was a question that came up at the public hearing about how would this apply to Mystic or the city of Groton. It won't. So in downtown, this will give us the ability to apply for infrastructure improvements, which sometimes that helps move development along. Also, one of the things that we've heard, I've had questions from a lot of people, and development has gotten incredibly expensive. This allows the state to help work with developers on better financing options so that development can actually happen. We can't force developers to sell their land or property owners, but again, it's another tool in the toolbox.
If I can add to that, you know, we hear quite often, and it's a focus of a lot of plans of helping to get movement downtown. And to your point in question about the housing, one of the key things that they do is help municipalities work on a focused housing plan. So what type of housing do you want? And then additionally, looking at how zoning might support it. So exactly your point, if something isn't working, why is that? And how can we use best practices to make some of those changes to see the activation that folks have been wanting for the downtown area? And, you know, essentially it's money on the table. So if this were an opportunity that we didn't go for, would the question be, you know, why didn't we take this opportunity? I think it's largely money on the table that we can use to support our downtown, which has been a focus area for a really long time.
And how long does this plan stay in place for?
It's essentially up to us. I think to John's point, if we were to start a particular project, that of course would have its own terms, you know, and be its own project. But overall, we're in it, and once we join, and really it's just based on our zoning. If we were to change that and no longer wanted to have it a certain way, we're essentially wouldn't be in the partnership anymore. Do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, it's been in our plan of conservation and development to get growth and development in this area and targeted here for a very long time. This is another tool to do that.
And if the town wanted to pull out of it, what's our pullout mechanism?
We would just say, thanks, but no thanks. We could change. Again, it's not something that, there's no forcing that you have to do this or you have to do that. It's, if we're eligible, we can then ask for grant funds. That's really what it is. Similar to the Community Investment Fund. We're one of the few municipalities in the state that's actually eligible to apply for that. We don't have to apply for it, but if we opt into this program, we can then apply for this money.
And who's picking the developers?
The developers come to the table with the private property owners.
And it would align with the focused housing plan and the zoning that was set in place to help support transit-oriented development.
Yeah.
Thank you. I am going to, it was asked on page 65, section 8-169II. This was the Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority and how it is established. It's sections A through K, because people are following along at home may want to know what that question and an answer was, because it was asked, and somebody didn't understand it. So it describes the establishment of it, their powers. It says the governor shall designate the chairperson. This was also set up, I guess, within 60 days after October 1st of 2023. It talks about how to maintain the records and how to proceed with that. The board will select a vice chair. No member of the board can receive compensation. It goes on and on. So A through K, that's what basically it is by the state level. Nothing to do with us. That's a state level. And it's just a description of how that board is pulled together.
And how they operate, yes.
Yes, and operations.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, no problem. No, that wasn't my time. I was answering a question. Does anybody else? Councilor Merritt.
Yes, by entertaining this here, was there any thought or background as to thinking about the previously proposed train station in Groton, in downtown area?
Yes, certainly.
It was.
So was there some thought? Well, yeah, because the state has a plan. Was that maybe 2 years ago they finished, I want to say, a year or so ago, looking at a possible train station, extending into Groton in this downtown area. What the next steps are for that plan, I'm not really sure, but is that a thought process that's there? Certainly.
That's what I thought so.
Yeah.
And can I add follow on to that?
Mr. Burke.
So let's say there was definitive plans for a train station and we want to do stuff in conjunction, I would assume we could apply for grants through this as part of that?
Definitely. We'd be applying for grants through this, through DOT, through the feds, through a lot of different people. And, those train station projects take a lot longer than the development of, excess properties to see those built out.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the mayor, so just listening to you describe this program, it seems it's sort of like our CCM membership, where we go to them for advice, they give us counsel when we have areas that we're stuck on, they will help guide us through it, and it has a money component, and it's about a certain area of the town, and that's basically what the program is. It's an advisory board that helps us do things in this area with a pot of money sitting at the back of it.
Correct.
Do I sort of have it right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Done.
Councilor Rusk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for addressing all of the concerns that were voiced at the public hearing. I appreciate that. And I want to take a quick pause and say, I apologize for coming off very strongly on the last one. I hear a lot of put it on the west side. So my apologies for coming off probably way too strong. Is there any way that this project can negatively impact the town? Or this, it's not really a project, but this redevelopment partnership, yes.
Well, we'll have potentially more development, which, I'm sorry, there might be a little bit more traffic. There might be some road construction, which will inconvenience people. There might be building construct, like, from a negative perspective. I don't say that entirely in jest, because those are the biggest concerns that we hear, is during construction, the Allen Street, when those roundabouts are built, it's going to be spectacular if that's the way we go. But during the construction of it, we're going to have a lot of unhappy people. I know on my commute, there was a roundabout that was under construction for a while, and it slowed things down. So yes, from that end, when there's development happening, we'll hear some feedback that's not always great. And, but from I don't see a downside in getting into this. Our mission is to help, implement the goals of the council. We've heard about growing the grand list. We've all talked about what can we do to help Route 1. We've heard about just the way it looks. It's tired. It was built out a long time ago. That should be one of our star areas for reinvestment, and we're just not seeing a lot of that. Yep, the Aldi's Plaza, we saw a really nice change over there pre-COVID. How can we make some things happen in some of those other areas? This is going to just be one more way to help make that happen.
But our Planning and Zoning Commission remains autonomous and can stop anything that does not fall within the planning and zoning rules or regulations.
Correct. So
Okay.
if the Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority has recommendations to say, hey, in order to get into this program, you need to do X, Y, and Z to the zoning, and our Planning and Zoning Commission says, yeah, we don't like that. That's it. All done.
And has this been discussed with the Economic Development Commission? And if so, what are their thoughts?
I don't think we brought this to them.
We haven't brought it to them.
Okay, is that something that can be done in the future, just to get their opinion? I mean, this is kind of their thing, so.
Sure, we can do that. At this point, we were essentially following the process that a municipality would do, basically the structure that the MRDA laid out. So we can definitely do that kind of as an additional piece and ask the EDC their opinion.
They were just concerns raised by fellow counselors. I just want to make sure that we're dotting all of our I's, crossing all our T's. Sorry, it's getting late. But thank you. I appreciate this. I, like Counselor Jones, feel like this is kind of a backbone piece. And as long as we are not tied to this in any way that we can't step away from, I'm good with moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor McBride.
Thank you. Thank you very much for bringing this forward. I have a little bit of familiarity with this because I have dealt with it in New London, so I think it's a wonderful initiative. I'm a big supporter of it. Again, thank you for bringing this forward. I think we, or at least what I recall, we've talked about economic development, we've talked about housing, how we need to improve in those areas. We've talked about, I think this council put together a grant position to come on board to get grants, and this kind of puts it all together into one basket. So I think it's like you said, it's an all-win situation. There's no risk involved. So I fully support it, and I think we should move it forward and continue on the path. I think it's a win, so thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. I second that. Councilor Pacino.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You said something about $65 million is what is?
60.
60 million? Is this a pot of money that continues to be filled on a yearly basis, or is that?
It's state bond funding. I think as they start drawing down, if the program is successful, they'll continue to ask the state for more funding.
Okay.
That's our understanding.
How many towns are in the program now? Do you know?
Well, when we last checked, it was 12 with some additional applying. So basically, as many qualifying ones become members, as many that qualify can become members, but it is first come, first serve with the funding. So there is slightly some urgency there where we will have a lot of competition for those funds. So right now, it's 12 and growing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilor Bordelon.
So technically, if we opt into this, we may never be awarded any money. I mean, theoretically, right, based on the concept, like, we could, say, yep, we're gonna go forward with this, and every, other towns that are in it could get it over us. It's not a guarantee that we're gonna get any money.
I think the most efficient towns will get the funds the fastest.
Okay, so the most efficient, but again, it's not a guaranteed. It doesn't state that we will get by being put in. It's a process, we have to go through it, and if we're selected, then funds are rewarded.
Just like any other
Correct.
grant.
So there is a chance we could opt into this and possibly get nothing, or they could freeze the funding, or, is this gonna be affected? I know a lot of people keep bringing up the whole, what's going on at the federal level. Is this something that's in jeopardy of being frozen?
They have the funds currently. We checked with David on that, so they aren't something that can be taken back at this point.
It's
So
not federal,
the 60
it's
million
bond
is
commission,
there.
state bonds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if there's no control by the state and we are controlling the destiny of it, and, how does one apply? Can you speak to that? Like, I own a building downtown Groton, I'm in the enterprise, how is this gonna roll out? Like, maybe that would help me understand, because I just don't see the process unfolding.
Sorry. So we'll, with your approval, we'll move into adopting the resolution and then entering into a memorandum of agreement with the Connecticut MRDA. And our attorneys will review that as well. And then it's really at our pace, we can start working with their team, again, starting essentially with that overall plan and housing, look at zoning, and then from there, it's really as fast as we want to take it, in establishing some of those key pieces to get started. Sorry, let me find the slide really quick. Let's see, and they have, basically, we work on that overall plan just for the TIF area, so it's kind of that overlay. So that would be the first step, and then again, it would just be essentially as quickly as we moved, aligning with their resources, and then getting to a place that we can start applying for funding or have developers apply for funding, which goes directly through them. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's still very early in the process for them. This has been created relatively recently, so some of this is, they're still trying to figure out some of their processes, but again, we have to go through those first steps.
I guess what I was trying to understand is like, so anyone qualifies as long as they're in that zone?
Well, they have to go through this process, they have to go through a public hearing, they have to then have a council adopt a resolution, they then have to enter into an MOU, they then review their zoning to make sure that it's consistent with the principles of what we're actually trying to accomplish with around, mixed-use development. And then if you are selected into that district, then you can apply for funding.
Okay. All right. Thanks for explaining. Again, I just kind of want to understand more. I understand it's new. It's just kind of hard to just blanketly agree to something without not knowing all, the outliers and not seeing.
Can you put your microphone back down, please? Your microphone?
Not knowing what the outcomes are going to be. It's kind of some of the greatest things seem great when they come out, and in the end, we find out later other things, not this particular thing, not in our town per se, but other things that people have done joint partnerships with. And then it's like, well, why didn't you ask this question? Why didn't you do this? Oh my God, this is a mess. What happened to the money? And it's like, just trying to understand, what is our pullout? What is our investment? What is, what control does the state have over this? I mean, if they don't have any control at all and we are running the show, I think that seems much better. I just think it's, as a municipality, giving the state all the power and guidance is, it takes away some of our kind of ownership in our own town. Those are some of the concerns that I've heard from people and was, wanting to address. So if that's the case, we kind of run the process and, goes from there and it's run through the town. I mean, that might be a different approach, but, we'll see. Thanks.
Councilor Parker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in reviewing this can help. They will assist us and guide us. Even if we are unable to get the funds, there's access to other officials, consultants to assist on everything. So.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm for this. It'll give us, it's a helping hand. It'll give us what we need to get that downtown built back up. Because a lot of people have said, I grew up here. There's nothing down there downtown anymore. And we need things. We need to keep things here in Groton instead of going across town, other towns to shop. If we have things here and homes and everything, we can grow our own, we can grow Groton, basically. So if they're going to provide any assistance via consultants and other things along that way, I'm all for it. So, and thank you guys for looking into this. So that's it.
All right, I'm not seeing any other hands, so we're going to take a vote on 2025-266-3, Connecticut Municipal Redevelopment Authority Partnership. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn, but don't forget, we now have a special town council meeting, so.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Motion to adjourn by Rusk, seconded by Parker. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. We are now going to.
say time?
Oh, yes, it's 9:57. All right, up next, Town of Groton Town Council Special Meeting Agenda. June 10th, 2025, calling the meeting to order at 9:57 PM. Roll call, all are present. All right, new business. Item number 1, 2025-414-6, the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act Program. And just before we get started, these are things we just talked about in the Town Council Committee of the Whole, and then we are passing them at the Town Council to finalize the vote. Councilor Merritt, would you like to take that? That is on the second page of our packet.
Item 2025-414, 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act Program. Resolution to approve the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act proposals for Noank Baptist Church, Town of Groton Community Center, and Community Center of Hope. Whereas the Town of Groton has received proposals from Noank Baptist Church, Town of Groton Community Center, and Community of Hope, and whereas the Town of Groton Department of Planning and Development Services received proposals from Noank Baptist Church and Town of Groton Community Center to achieve tax credit savings on energy efficiency and energy conservation projects, and a 9-month extension of the approved 2023 application for Community of Hope. And whereas the Town of Groton Office of Planning and Development Services supports the proposals from each of these entities and acknowledges that the post-program review will be their responsibility. And whereas the Town Council held a public hearing on the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act applications on June 3rd, 2025, whereas the Town of Groton Town Council supports the proposals from each of these entities, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council hereby approves the proposals for Noank Baptist Church, Town of Groton Community Center, and Community of Hope for the 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act.
Second.
Moved by Merritt, seconded by Parker. All right, seeing no hands, I'm going to take a vote on 2025-414-6, 2025 Neighborhood Assistance Act Program. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 8-0. Up next, Pleasant Valley, 2025-521-2, Pleasant Valley scheduled public hearing. This is on our packet on page 4. Councilor Parker, would you like to take that one?
Make a resolution to schedule a public hearing for the sale of the Pleasant Valley School property, whereas the Town of Groton owns excess buildings and properties that are no longer needed for public uses, and has been marketing the former Pleasant Valley School for sale, and whereas Connecticut General Statute, Section 7-163E, requires a public hearing by the legislative body on the sale of real property owned by a municipality that has a value exceeding $10,000. And whereas the Town of Groton, through the Property Sale Review Committee, PSRC, solicit interested developers through an RFP process and subsequent interviews with the PSRC, and has chosen Spinnaker Acquisitions LLC as the preferred developer for the Pleasant Valley School property, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Council hereby authorizes the Town Manager to schedule a public hearing for July 1st, 2025, for purposes of selling the Pleasant Valley School property consistent with Connecticut General Statute 7-163E. I so move.
Second, Pacino.
Moved by Parker, seconded by Pacino. Councilor Bordelon.
I just had a question to the mayor, to the town manager. How is it going to be posted, just so people aren't confused? Because they're going to be like, wait, didn't we just have one? Did something change? Is it a new developer? I mean, that's the things I would be thinking. Like, we just had one and now we're having another one. What changed? They're going to want to know.
Well, I think the important thing is that they just know there is one. That 5:30 especially is key. We'll get the word out. We'll put it on our website, we'll put it on Facebook,
And when is it going to be posted on the grounds?
any day now. I know Mr. Reiner is already working with Mr. Hanover at Public Works to put one out.
Okay, I just think it might be a little bit confusing. I think there should be a little bit more dialogue, if nothing's changed. So, but that you're just doing it because you want to repost. Just a thought.
Seeing no other hands, we're going to take a vote on 2025-521-2 Pleasant Valley, schedule a public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Motion to adjourn.
That passes 8-0 to 0. We have an adjournment by Parker, seconded by Rusk. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 8-0 to 0. And we are adjourned at 10:03 PM. Drive safe, everybody.